This week on Waxing the Porpoise, G-Baby and the usual suspect Steve are joined by a special guest, Soju from the Straight Chilling podcast, to enter the dance of the mind and break down 2013's Prisoners, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Join us as we get the keys to the yard and discuss just how far people are willing to go to uncover the truth, examine some of the philosophies presented in the film from an American perspective contrasted with a Korean perspective by way of Soju's experiences, and also we'll learn about the genesis of Bill Hips Don't Lie Paxton. We're on tonight, you know these hips don't lie, and we're starting to feel it's right. Let's wax this morally ambiguous porpoise.
Chase, don't do that.
You see, we working on his brow chakra. We're just in back of the crown chakra.
All right, welcome to Waxing the Porpoise. We are back again here now on episode 42, gathered here today to discuss Prisoners from 2013. This is a film directed by Denis Villeneuve and starring Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Maria Bello, Terrence Howard, Paul Dano, and others. Tonight, you've got myself, Jim G. Baby.
Pete! Hans! No!
And, of course, as always, the usual suspect, Steve.
Sean, you're my same height. That is neat.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. And once again, we have another special guest. This time, we have good friend Soju, a.k.a. Justin, from the Straight Chilling podcast.
Could you sting me like an angel dropped in dirt?
How's it going, man?
Hello, gentlemen's. Thanks for having me. What's up, man?
Good to have you on. Do you recognize that from Party
Down? Yeah. That's throwback.
The blonde-haired dude, I think, I can't remember his name, was like Kyle, and he's like serenading that like 17-year-old. Dude, that shit was so funny.
That's a good show.
Yeah, I heard it was actually getting picked
back
up or doing something. Yeah.
I haven't thought about it in a long time, but it's God, what's that guy who's in Parks and Rec later on? Adam something. It was like the first thing I ever saw him in.
Yeah,
Adam McKay?
I forget his name.
Fuck us.
What the fuck is his name? He was in. He's super good in Severance. Adam Scott. That's right.
Okay, yeah.
He's got such a generic sounding name. I think it just gets lost in the shuffle. But yeah, he was in it. He's awesome. I love that dude who played Ronald. Ron.
Yeah. I haven't really seen him in a lot of things, but he was good in that show.
Yeah. He's was so in actually like a flashback. He was in the show called The State that was on MTV in like 1992, 93. Okay. It was like way ahead of its time. It only ran like a season, but I feel like if people like younger like tuned into that, they would get a lot out of it. Like
I've never heard of that.
Time. But yeah, he was like a main player in that, and he's super funny in that. So yeah, I was racking my brain for like, I was going for something with a stain, and then I was like, oh yeah, you stained me. So
that's good.
Yeah, we're super glad to have you. Honored that you would come on and discuss some movies with us. And
absolutely. I was excited. You gave me some good choices too. I'd never seen like any of those films you picked for me.
Yeah, well, it was down to like this, Existence, which would have been a good one too. I can't remember the other two, but I tried to shoot because right now you're doing that offshoot of Straight Chilling. You have your own YouTube series. What you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. It's just kind of like a little spinoff. So we do weekly horror movie reviews, and I think the first time it was coming out was that MCU special of The Werewolf by Night, and I really wanted to talk about it, but the other guys were like, MCU. Bleh. So I was like, well, fuck you guys. I'm going to do my own shit. And so now I'm like, well, this is like, I'm talking about thrillers, and so I'm like horror adjacent to kind of keep it within the realm. And so, yeah, you were on for the second episode. We talk about Batman Returns. And Batman just like blowing the shit out of people.
Murdering
and
folk.
the most recent one I did was Fight Club, which is coming out on Monday. So yeah,
Well, Matt Dog, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one, especially
Yeah.
too. I think before that, I don't know if he did it consciously or not, but he was talking about how that's like one of his all time faves. And
That's
then
what sparked it. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
cool.
reached out for it. Like he hit that discussion he was throwing. I was like, oh shit, hey, come on, talk about this with me. So
Sweet. Yeah, I love that film. I saw that in the theater when it came out in like 2000 or 2001. And that was like a steady rotation once I got like my hands on the DVD. Like I used to I'd just put it on and pass out to it.
I hadn't seen it in forever. It's a 99 film, so fucking big year for movies.
Damn.
99. You got Fight Club and The Matrix. I need to cover The Matrix too. So yeah, but it was cool to go back and revisit. It'd been a while.
Nice. Yeah, so you're kind of, I don't know, are you planning on with that segment always hitting like the edge of horror and like steering harder into like thriller kind of stuff, or
Mostly. Now, sometimes, like, I picked some movies that I hadn't seen, and one ended up, like, really not fitting that bill. But I'm like, fuck it. I want to talk about it anyways. But so, like, I'm gonna talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is one of the big ones that came out last year.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. But like my list, some of this director stuff is on this list, or on my list of like things I eventually want to talk about, like Arrival, and I think he did like even there was another one I can't remember, but yeah, he's done a couple things that are like darker, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe crime based or anything like that. I'll stretch it as far as I can. So no rom-coms, but you know, for the most part, you know, just like some dark shit. Yeah.
Right
So
on.
this would fit the bill. Like I totally would talk about this for sure. This
Nice.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, because you guys are like purveyors of horror, so I thought, you know, I mean, I like that kind of stuff. I like a lot of comedies, but I tend to like more darker action thriller, horror, crime kind of bent. So I thought this would be like a nice little transition to come over to our show and talk about something equally as bleak. So I guess first off, Steve, this is the first time watch for you.
Yes.
What did you think of this?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Awesome.
This is like right in my wheelhouse.
Sweet. Yeah, I've been a little unsure based on past episodes I had higher hopes for, but this one the only thing I could see with this one is maybe being the runtime, but I feel like this film's pretty unique in that its runtime isn't really felt. At least that's how I felt. Like it doesn't feel like a 2.5 hour film.
No,
I didn't feel it. I didn't have to take any breaks or anything. Yeah.
There have been times where I'll check to see where we are time wise, and it's kind of a slog. But this one, I would check, and it's like, oh shit, there's only 40 minutes left or whatever. I was really enjoying it. I wouldn't have minded if it was even longer.
Wow, awesome score, Shootsy scores. Cool. So I think we've briefly touched on in previous episodes that Denis Villeneuve, the director of this, did Blade Runner 2049. Are you familiar with him, Steve, in like any of his other work, or had you heard of this film talked about by anyone before?
I had heard of it. All I knew is that there was like a kidnapping plot line, and that the only other thing I'd heard about it was like really dark and really depressing. So the whole time I was just gearing up for like a really, really bummer ending. Like I was expecting like a like Inglourious Bastards basement bar where just like everybody kills everybody and kids are dead and then the movie's over. So
hell yeah,
I found it to be a lot more uplifting than I was expecting. Maybe that's just because I'm a sick fuck. But I was like, this isn't so bad.
What a feel good film.
Yeah, right.
Cool. And then Soju, this was a first time watch for you as well?
Yeah, like all the movies you picked, especially this one, I never even heard of this, which was like wild to me because when you were like, hey, you know, you want to pick one of these movies, I was like looking at all of them. I was like, Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Jackman. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
well, how have I never heard
Yeah.
of this movie? Because also Blade Runner 2049, that was the other movie that was on my list. So I know this director. And I was just like, how did this completely fly under the radar for me? Never heard of it, never even seen a trailer or anything. So yeah, complete
wow.
first time watch and like complete surprise. I didn't other than the trailer of researching like the film, I didn't like do any other kind of research going in. So yeah, complete blind spot for me.
Cool. And I guess what we just usually with Steve, I get this out of the way on the front end, and we dive into it. But what did you think of this one overall? If you just had, was this a yay or nay?
Yeah, I definitely would. When we get into it, I'm going to talk about kind of like since I went in completely blinds of kind of like my progression of what I thought about it. There were times where I didn't think as highly as I did once it was finished. And even once it was finished, I really like chewed on this movie kind of for a while, thinking about some of the like themes and what's going on, because they do a pretty good job of having like, you know, some ambiguous things going on. But I would say that I really started to like really appreciate this film as much as I do now once I sat with it and like really thought about like what I had seen. So it wasn't even like an initial like, yeah, I fucking love that film.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's good. Yeah, I do think it's a good film. And I think within this realm of kind of like dark kind of crime films, especially since like I never even heard of it, I definitely would like recommend it to people like, hey, you need to check this out.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you liked it. And yeah, there is a ton to go over and parse through because and you make a good point. This is one that will that should sit with you for a while because there is a ton of different themes and there's symbology up the ass. And I mean, I did some cursory research. I watched a couple video essays that were like, every time I watch those, I'm like, fuck, these people are so goddamn insightful. But like, I wish I was able to like clock some of this like while I'm watching it. But who knows how many times they've like watched over it and like looked for things to like dissect it. But maybe I'm just not doing my due diligence. But yeah, there's like so much more in this. Like you can go pretty deep with this. But even as a layperson watching this, I think my favorite thing about it is, I mean, there's a couple red herrings in this film, but I feel like they're not true red herrings in there just to throw you off of like who done it. It kind of, it's like layers of this bloomin' onion that they're all kind of connected still in some way.
Yeah.
And so I like that it, because most films like this, they're like, you know, something happens and you're like, okay, who did it? And you're like, you're playing that game along with it. And movies will insert stuff here to be like, gotcha. You know, it's not this, like to prove how much smarter it is or, you know, people that enjoy that kind of cat and mouse game. But I did like this, how like all these pieces, they kind of come back in on each other.
All the diversions kind of make sense instead of just misdirecting
like,
you over here. And then it's like, oh no, actually it's over here. It's like, well, you're suspicious of this thing and it turns out it is involved just in a different way than what you were initially expecting. And yeah, I like that too, because I hate that cheap like, oh, look at this guy over here, like nah, this guy had nothing to do with it.
Well, yeah, so that's a weird, so there was a weird point in like actually towards the end or maybe right after end where I thought that way, where I was like, because there was some weird editing choices, especially like when he goes to the priest house initially, when he's just interviewing people, I was like, why? I was kind of confused. I was like, why is he going to this guy's house? Is he a sex? You know, he had mentioned like previously, like, oh, there's some sex offenders. I'm going to go check him out. But he acted like he knew him. And then like the fucking Riddler pulling on like the dog's leash and shit and like doing these things to make you think certain ways. And so at times I was like, were they too heavy handed on that shit? But what I think I feel about this now is it's not actually about the who done it. It's more about the messages like kind of told through this shell of a whodunit. That's kind of how I feel now. I don't know. The discussion might change that a little bit, but yeah, it was interesting. It was definitely different from just a standard kind of whodunit.
I think what I like about this film is it's more, at the end of the day, it's less about like finding out, okay, who took the girl and getting her back safely, but all the things that happen in between, kind of like the, you know, the cliche, it's not the end point, it's the journey. I like how I felt like this film really leans into that part of it, which maybe makes it feel like that 2.5 hours doesn't feel like that long, you know, because each one of these layers and each one of these characters is really interesting. I think they were able to really quickly establish like a backstory without like telling you a lot. Towards the beginning, when Hugh Jackman's character goes downstairs to his basement, it's just a quick shot, and so you can see like immediately right away, okay, he's got fucking like racks built in his basement. He's got food. He's kind of a survivalist, maybe one of these like, you know,
like a prepper.
What do they call those? Prepper kind of person.
Yeah.
And then like the angle shifts very slightly, and then you can see like gas masks like hanging on a wall, but it doesn't linger on that, and then it moves on. And you know, from more of the beginning too, you know, he sees a God-fearing person. He has a little moment with his son talking about always be ready. Like his father, the best knowledge he ever passed on to him was always be ready, be prepared for everything. So like for him, like within the first like 3 minutes of this movie, you get a really good picture of Hugh Jackman's character. And then I feel like they do for all the mains. I feel like they give you a good, you have a good idea of who these people are. And I like that a lot about this film too. Jake Gyllenhaal is a little bit different. I'm sure we'll get into him some more, but back to like, you know, not focusing on who did this and taking the film as a whole and looking at all the different themes within. I guess the first thing when I was watching this was, and it starts off very quickly, is when he gets Alex, played by Paul Dano. It's like, okay, yeah, fucking torture this guy, beat the shit out of him, get what you need. And then by the end of the film, it's like you realize he was just a victim in this whole thing, and the real monster was this woman, you know, who's got this thing against God. And there's a lot of like some Christian themes going on in here too, along with like Norse mythology stuff with like
Loki, the guy's
Loki.
being named Loki.
Yeah. But it was weird because I didn't think it was going to be that kind of film, you know, like make you feel like, oh shit, like what does that say about me that I wanted this guy tortured and like to like just beat, like where's my kid? It's like you pull back and there's all these different stories and how they connect together, and like he was just a pawn in this whole thing, you know. And out of the gate, you're thinking for a while, it's like, okay, yeah, this is the fucking bad guy. We need to take down Paul Dano and fucking make him crack somehow.
Yeah,
Well, I honestly think that's ultimately the most interesting thing to me. There's a lot of good elements in this film, but when I really like take it all in, the idea of Hugh Jackman's character halfway through this movie, I think one of the things that kind of bothered me a little bit, especially when the two dads kind of start getting in on it together, where they're beating this guy, and after again you had seen the weirdo kid, you know, lift the dog up in the air, which is like, you know, what the fuck? Even if he didn't abduct kids, like don't fuck with a dog. Like you never do that in a movie unless you want to like fucking hate somebody. But halfway through, what I was thinking, I was like, is this some kind of like suburban parent porn where you're like, yeah, get the weirdo kid, beat the shit out of him to get your kid back? And especially with him saying the prayer and hunting the deer and stuff like that, I was like, this feels a little weird. Like, where's this going? You know, what's going on with this? But what I found very interesting is that character of Hugh Jackman ultimately like becomes the same kind of character of the abductor, because her whole backstory is our kid died. And so from that grief, from that pain, whatever, we're waging this war on God, which, you know, is its own kind of thing. But you know, it's the quote that popped in to my mind of like, all it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy. You know, this God-fearing, straight-laced, prepping everything. suddenly is in a situation where he's not in control, and instead of kind of like taking care of his wife and taking care of his kid, like doing his best to kind of like help the police in a general way, he abducts somebody, which we find out later is just an abducted kid. So I love the kind of symbol there of, and then ultimately this kind of like God-fearing man just like descends into hell, which is kind of like where I saw him like descending like into the pit. He didn't help anything. He didn't help anyone. And he reduced his like moral character to that of someone in hell, essentially. And so I thought that was like super interesting. And the only kind of like problem I had with that is how they ended the film, because I was like, if they just left it with that idea that, yeah, he absolutely died in the pit as a result of his actions, that would have been like, fuck, But I don't know. I wasn't crazy about the idea that, he's going to get out alive, even if he's going to jail and shit like that. I don't know. It hit me more in the gut that, man, like you just sacrificed yourself. And like, I don't know. I kind of like that idea. What'd y'all think of the ending specifically?
Steve, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Just to piggyback on what you were saying, I felt so bad for Mr. Birch, Terrence Howard, when he gets brought in to the torture scene, because it's like, what is he going to do? He doesn't want any part of this, but it's like he can't go to the cops. He's not going to fight him about it. Like, I was just trying to put myself in that spot. Like, fuck, that is just an impossible spot to be put in. But
whoop that trick himself.
Yeah. I liked the ending. I was a little unsure how they were going to end it when like he hears it once, he hears it twice, and then like the third time it's like, okay, yeah, he definitely heard it. He's not just going to ignore it, and then it cuts to black. If he had heard it kind of once and then shrugged like, that's weird, and then just walked away and they cut it, I'd be fine with that too, really. Because obviously they left it a little ambiguous, but I think it's pretty clear that he like he's hip to what's going on and he's going to go find him. He's not just like, oh, that's really weird. So I didn't really have any problem with it. If I had to pick one issue I had with this movie, it was, or not even the movie, but just the plot when Hugh Jackman goes back to the aunt's house with the gun. And he's like, I'm here to fix your door, and then he turns around and she's got the gun on him. This guy who throughout the entire movie would fight a fucking telephone pole if it meant getting any closer to his kid. It's like, you've got to try to beat the shit out of this old lady. You cannot put those handcuffs on because this lady's telling you she is killing and abducting kids. Like, it's over if you put those handcuffs on. If I don't know, I just feel like you've got to at least take one shot.
Well, I feel like he missed his shot in that point. If he was going to do that, I kind of have a similar problem, but my problem is with his character motivation is like he should have just gone in, like he should have parked 6 blocks away, a half mile away, gone in fucking like Navy SEAL style, and then just onslaught bum rush. Yeah, that's your best shot if you're going to do that. But I disagree. Like when he gets in there, it's like she's killed people. I'm assuming she can use a gun. It's like your chances are pretty slim, even if you're that close quarters and try to bum rush her. I feel like you'd have more of a chance, like if you're going to comply.
Bob and weave, like, baby, Bob and weave.
Or like
stop, drop, and roll her up real quick.
Like so to jump off of that, I thought. Yeah, I didn't necessarily mind that moment, but what really bothered me, I guess he doesn't essentially know what the hole is or where he's going. But when he's like, you're going to have to shoot me to go in that hole, I'd be like, fuck no. I'd be like, all right, yeah, I feel like he's a grown man, a capable man. Yeah, he's handcuffed, but it's not that big of a hole and it's covered by a piece of wood. I kind of was like a little bothered by how chintzy it was. And she's like, yeah, I'm just going to throw this grown man. It's like a piece of plywood that's covering this, like, So I was like, I feel like I'd be like, yep, I'm getting in the hole. And at least you're healthy enough and capable enough to maybe do something once you're down there, once she leaves you. But I mean, it's hard to say because, when you're in that situation, you don't know you don't know what's gonna be down there, what's gonna happen. But I don't know. It just like strategy wise, like you're gonna have to shoot me to go in that hole. It's like at least like you have a chance to survive. No, you don't know what it is, but she can shoot you point blank and you're dead. Or you could go down to the hole healthy and hope that you can escape in some way.
Yeah, it's weird to be like, okay, this is the line now when I'm handcuffed, and you know, if she does shoot me and I'm in this hole, that's a lot worse than being not shot in this fucking hole, you know. Exactly. Whereas when he went inside and complied and like handcuffed, it's like if you're already doing that, yeah, you should probably not put up a fight now. And now you got a fucking leg wound, guy. Like, but I will say too, that hole seemed pretty steep. Like this time it hit me because when he jumps and then falls, it sounds like maybe he twisted an ankle or busted a knee too. Because this time, like I had the volume up pretty loud. I felt the depth of that one. Like if I felt like that was like maybe 15 feet, maybe 10 feet, but still like that is a bet. You do have better odds, like being not shot and trying to get out of that. But,
I think this is probably the third or fourth time I've advocated Spartan kicking an old woman right in the chest.
That's all this podcast has. Kick an old bitch in the chest.
Aim for the solar plexus and just cover that distance fast, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Is that all you had for like what your thoughts were about the ending? I'm about to jump on this.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna say I was expecting when he's driving to the hospital, I was like, he's gonna wreck, the kid's gonna fucking die, he's gonna die in the hole, and it's just gonna go away. But
yeah, that part it's like wouldn't you call for someone and then, you know, drive a lot safer? Be like, hey, I'm driving to the hospital, you know, if they needed to intercept. I feel like that would have been protocol, was like at least call and say something. Sure, because he is fucking bobbing and weaving in traffic when it's like straight on sideways fucking rain, hail mix. Like he is booking it.
Yeah,
I think she injected her with something. What was up with that?
That was like, I can't remember why I remember it, but this watch for this episode, I must have missed it again, but I thought I remembered. It could have been from one of these sites online that I researched before, but that's the role of like the snake, other than like some symbology too, I'm sure we'll get into, but it was a mixture, it was like a cocktail including the snake venom as that her husband had cooked up. And she talks about, she's like, yeah, my husband made, you know, quite the little cocktail that he passed down to me, but I can't remember where. But
I don't remember hearing that at all.
It could have been maybe something in the background, like that I read about that Denis Villeneuve talked about. Because spoiler alert, too, he actually came out and said he's cleared up for people. Like, yes, Jake Gyllenhaal did go and save him, Hugh Jackman at the end. Which, I mean, going off of that, to my opinion of the ending, I don't like that either. That he said that as the director. I wish he would have just left it up for interpretation, but I also think they should have left off that last whistle, because to your point, Steve, like the first, second, there's 3 whistles. The third one, you pick it up, Jake Gyllenhaal definitely hears it, and throughout the film you see he's a fucking bulldog for these kinds of things, you know, and like he's not gonna be like, oh, weird, what's that later? And you can tell, I feel like you can tell that the look on his face, like, okay, that third one sealed it, he's gonna go get him. Whereas if they left it just with the first whistle, maybe just the first one because it's really faint, and then just cut, that would have been, to me, like ideal. Like, oh fuck yeah, man, he ate it. But he made the ultimate. He was for all his faults, is my opinion too, he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, right or wrong, and he did. So I'm sure we're going to get into the morality side of this here too pretty quickly, but I don't know.
Guys, just as like a quick little detour, speaking of dads getting vengeance on creepy people, I'm sure you guys have heard his name's like Gary Plauche or Plauche. This was back. Is
this the dude that killed the dude in the airport?
Yeah.
Dude,
yes. What?
Yeah,
tell me about this. I don't know what's going on.
It is. It's pretty sweet. So it was back in the 80s, and G, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm kind of just going off memory. This guy's kid, I think he was like 10. He was apparently getting systematically abused by his karate instructor for like a year.
Oh god,
and then the instructor abducts the kid from Louisiana, and they head out to Southern California, and kidnapper foolishly lets the kid call home. So they find him, arrest him, bring him back home, and as they're transporting him through the airport, and there's video of this, and the video is awesome. The cops are like walking him through this little municipal airport, and there's a bank of payphones in the back, and there's a guy on the payphone like with a hat and sunglasses on. And as they walk him by, he turns and he's got a handgun and he just puts it right to his head, fucking shoots him, kills him. And he got 0 jail time, which I thought was bizarre.
That's fucking crazy.
He got a suspended sentence, so it was like 7 years, bunch of probation, community service, thankfully. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's all I was thinking about during this movie. Like, and he kind of became like a folk hero almost.
Yeah,
I know if somebody did that to my cat. Whew.
Yeah, I'm gonna try, because I have kids now. I'm gonna try to stay away from that fucking. Ever since I had kids, I feel this way about it, or like it's some kind of like elevated opinion. But
actually, I don't know. That's pretty interesting because I don't have kids, and so I have like some nieces and nephews and stuff like that. But it's definitely different. I wouldn't say that. And so I have like when I was saying like, oh, is this kind of like suburban parent porn before, where I was just like, because I find it interesting. As a side tangent, I really liked to see Jake Gyllenhaal in this role because a lot of the times before this, he plays a lot of like swirly characters, Donnie Darko, Nightcrawler, real weird, swirly kind of guy. And they out swirly Jake Gyllenhaal, where Jake Gyllenhaal is just like the straight away guy. And then they fucking get old Paul in here, who always plays, even if he's like a villain or not, he's always playing some super swirly guy. I mean, he's the fucking Riddler. He's in that There Will Be Blood.
Dude, he's excellent in There Will Be Blood.
He's always excellent. Like, he plays that role great. But so I like to see Jake Gyllenhaal. But with the whole Hugh Jackman thing, they laid on a lot of aspects really thick. And I was like, okay, what are they going with this? In the very opening scene, he's hunting. He's praying, and taking this character and then pitting him against this swirly character who, again, we think maybe he abducted children. We know it's a whodunit. So we're like, is it a rat? But again, with the dog, even still, you're like, fuck anybody who hurts a dog, always. And so then it's kind of like it gets to this point where it's like, get your kid back, beat the shit out of this guy, burn or whatever, like do whatever it takes. And it's okay because this kid is so swirly, because they picked the ultimate, like, kind of creepy guy. Then you're like, okay. And so that I was like, is it advocating for that by picking like the grimiest looking little character, little worm kind of character to do that? But to flip it on its head and be like, no, this is like a victim within itself. And it's essentially like Hugh Jackman in that way, in that he abducts essentially a kid who is already abducted. He just becomes in that role of the woman who the kind of same thing befell upon her. Oh, I lost my kid, and so now I do this. And so it's like, Hugh Jackman, I lost my kid, and I take this guy not knowing he's an abducted kid, but just falling into that same role. And I was like, oh, fuck, that's smart as shit.
Yeah.
Regardless of like the morality of it, just like the flip on its head, I was like, hell yeah, like that's wild.
There was that funny
You're going to say something, Steve? Go.
I was just going to say, after Gyllenhaal interrogates the kid and is like, yeah, we're not going to hold him. He didn't do anything. It was just funny. There's that one line where he's like, Alex Jones has the IQ of a 10-year-old. And in my brain, I just immediately thought of the other Alex Jones. I'm like, I can't believe nobody's taken that as like a little snippet. Like, Alex Jones has the IQ of a 10-year-old.
Dude, for real. You would think that would be like people against Alex Jones, that would be everywhere, like a 10-second like YouTube short of him saying some shit and like adding that line. Like, he has I have the documents. Yeah, what a poor choice. of naming that character. It's like you could have named him anything. Alex Jones. Yeah, I like that a lot too about this, that it like, you know, like that it's like a vicious cycle that Hugh Jackman's character gets sucked into. And then, you know, yeah, it's like the parallel is I can't remember the gal's name, the aunt. I mean, she's mad at the world and trying to inflict it on anyone she can, like against God. And then whereas, you know, Hugh Jackman's, he's got a little bit more of a narrow lens. He's like, yeah, I'm almost positive this is the guy who abducted and possibly killed my daughter. Does that make it, you know, any more right for him?
So
It's like,
I saw a little bit of a change in my mind anyway between like this is him being a vigilante doing whatever it takes to get his kid back to this is him just lashing out because he doesn't know what else to do when they first see that other dude like at the vigil and they're like, we've got this other guy, we think it's him, and he's like, they're in it together. It's like, okay, now you've just completely mentally checked out and you're no longer thinking about this rationally. You just want to inflict this pain you're feeling on somebody else instead of trying to figure out like, oh shit, is that the guy?
well, I mean, and I get going back to like me prefacing like being a father, wearing my father hat, watching this is I really love Denis Villeneuve's like style, and the cinematographer Roger Deakins, who shot this film. It feels like there's no wasted space in like the dialogue, the scenes, the story, and the way things are shot. But wearing the dad hat, it's like I feel like you can feel the pressure and the wall is closing in on Hugh Jackman as like, what would you do in that kind of situation? And, you know, he's getting it from his wife too. So there's like a little bit of guilt and there's like, you know, a threat to his manhood where like, what you said you could always keep us safe. She's crying. And, like, I don't understand. Why can't you get her? What are you like? So it's like right there, that's a huge chunk that you got to take on. And how do you reconcile that in your mind? What are you going to do? But then also like, just like the cold, hard reality of, okay, it's day one and you're like freaked out and like having to be in that mindset and then living through that, like searching through the woods, and then it's like overnight and like the days bleed into one another. And then, you know, the longer it goes, the less time or, you know, the less chance that your daughter's actually going to be alive. So it makes sense that you would ramp up and like the desperation effect, I feel like would kick in or not, or because then you have to Hugh Jackman's foil is Terrence Howard, who plays, because there's two girls kidnapped, and one of which is Terrence Howard and Viola Davis's daughter, Joy. And he handles it a completely fucking different way. And I think, like, at the beginning, he feels like some kind of like he feels like he owes his friend to go and be there for him and help him out. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, they're both in the same boat. But it's just Hugh Jackman that's chosen to take the initiative and abduct the supposed killer or abductor played by Paul Dano. But yeah, he handles it way differently. He's more, I mean, he's a completely different person. I think they frame him up being like, you know, more upwardly mobile. Like they got a little bit more money. He seems a little bit more, he's different. He's not a hunter. He's not a survivalist.
He's a musician as opposed. So the opening shot is, oh, I'm hunting. And he's a carpenter. He loves, you know, he's Christian. And then, you have the musician. Yeah. That's his
I thought that was a good
scene.
foil.
Yeah.
Like, he's the artist of these two guys.
He had like 8 giant cans of Crisco in his basement. That was so fucking weird. I don't know what you would use all that for, but...
Lou.
Have you ever... Oh, boy. I didn't think about that.
Boner alert!
What the fuck? Gee, have you ever...
I couldn't... That one was burning a hole in my pocket.
Have you ever had like a momentary scare where you like thought you lost your kid, like at a grocery store or anything like that, where you have that moment of like, oh fuck, where... Have you ever had that or no?
No, but it's funny. I fear the fear of that.
Yeah.
Being out in public. Fortunately, no, it hasn't. And I think that's because my wife is just like a fucking hawk, dude. Like if I take eyes off for 1 second. She'll turn back. Are you watching the child? Like, always smiling, always laughing. Look at the baby. Look at the baby. Yeah, it's yeah, we're pretty hyper focused. I wouldn't call helicopter, but luckily no. I mean, shit can happen to anyone. It's crazy too, like how, like when we were living outside the Sacramento area, that's like the nation's capital for fucking like child abduction and human trafficking, especially of children. It's like a main hub because you runs along I-5 that goes fucking South America to Canada, you know, like you could just stay on one fucking road, I think, or it's like Mexico to Canada. But yeah, that's scary to think about because, you know, Sacramento is not like you're going to New York or LA. So yeah,
I would think it'd be easier in
mind.
Places like that, you know, like the
yeah,
small
that's a little bit more low
towns.
profile. It's not like
where
5 million
maybe
people,
the
it's like a half a
police.
mil.
Yeah, where the police force isn't as funded, you know, they don't have as much
point.
training, they don't have as much connections to like forces like the FBI or something like that. That would be my man. I'd be like, oh, go to small town or something, and that's where it would be easier. Ugh, that's creepy, man. Ugh.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
Especially if you're an out of towner, someone would probably suspect like a local or.
That's a good, yeah,
true. So I guess kind of where we're at is wrestling with the moral idea of, you know, would you do this? It's kind of asking you as a viewer, and then, or do you agree with how Hugh Jackman's kind of handling this? But I guess maybe just to flip over to Jake Gyllenhaal's character, because I think he's the other side of the coin. He's the foil, the main foil to Hugh Jackman's character. Because obviously he's with the law. He represents law and order, so he's doing everything by the book, whereas Hugh Jackman's taking things into his own hands, which ties back into like his mantra of his dad saying, you know, always be ready, always be prepared, and having that mindset, like, you know, telling his son, you know, what are we going to do when, you know, something happens, whatever it is, hurricane, flood, you know, whatever, terrorists
kill
come,
ourselves.
You know, groceries are going to stop being delivered to the stores. What?
I said, what are we going to do? We're going to kill ourselves.
Just go out Miss style.
I mean, that's what the dad did, ultimately. When the going got tough, he just domed himself.
Yeah, I love that kind of idea, too, of like the mentality is you have to do something. When actually, you know, if he had done nothing, if he had been for instance, if he had been at home with his wife, he probably would have caught the guy breaking into his house trying to steal the kids' you know, clothes. And then ultimately when they find the kids' clothes and there's blood on it, you know, he goes into the whole spiel of the guilt he essentially is feeling, I think, for himself, which I thought was a brilliant moment, where he says to Jake Gyllenhaal, you know, if you hadn't been following me, you would have stopped this. You had done this. But obviously he realizes at this point, well, the guy I have is not the guy. And, you know, really, if I hadn't have been doing this, you know, maybe I would have found my kid. But just, I think I love the kind of foil of the idea is when you're in this trauma and this type of character who feels like he has to be prepared, is the whole idea of people deal with things in different ways. And just because that's your reaction doesn't mean that's right, or like even the best course, like this is how I have to do it. I have to do something. It's like, you know, you can do other things that aren't this, or not do anything, and it can work out better, you know. And just so it really kind of feeds into his a little bit of mania, you know, of he's too worried about being in control, and that is his foil essentially is and that's kind of why I wish he was left in the hole. And you could still, you know, you could still end it with the whole scene, and maybe you give one whistleblower where he sees it. But even if you left it with the scene where the people leave and Jake Gyllenhaal is like standing there and you know his body's there, you're like, maybe he'll find him or not. But the whole idea of this guy who has to be in control, his control is what led him into this pit. Had he sat at home, he would have got his daughter back. He would have been fine. He wouldn't have been facing jail time. And I thought they set that up well, even to the idea of like, he's run away because he knows he's facing jail time. I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking smart of an idea to just leave this guy to rot in this pit and nobody will really miss him because they think he's on the run. So I don't know. I like the idea of his kind of need to be in control just fucks him essentially.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a pin in Steve, go ahead. I have a counterpoint to that. I'm going to put a pin in it because I think there's some other stuff that's interesting that we should get in before that. But I'll have an argument against like if he did nothing versus what he did, if that helped out the situation at all. But yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on what Justin was saying because I kind of agree. Like,
so you're on team. He should have just done nothing.
Well, I'm not going to go so far as that.
And I should shut up.
I was gonna submit a thought that I had that was similar, where Hugh Jackman's character was like such a fucking liability all the time. He took up a lot of the attention that could have gone towards looking for the kid. Like, for example, when he decides to confront the guy in the parking lot of the police station when they let him go.
God, originally I love that scene. It's so satisfying. Like at the beginning when you watch it for the first time, it's like, oh yeah, fuck this creep. And that's the beauty of this film, the way it sets all those things up.
Yeah. So when he attacks the guy in the parking lot, now it's a problem, right? Because he just assaulted this guy. So they bring him in and he's talking to Jake Gyllenhaal and the chief's like, all right, we're just going to pretend this never happened, blah, 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 get out of here. Prior to that,
did you catch that part too where he's like, I see your father was a prison guard up at Gatenberg or whatever the fuck it was. So that's kind of interesting to me. Like the movie's called Prisoners. It's about all these things. And his dad was a prison guard. Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy.
So prior to the prisoners,
sorry.
Prior to him assaulting the guy in the parking lot, they said the plan was to let him go home and then put surveillance on him. And if they would have done that, they probably would have seen them moving the kids around because the lady later says, oh, we had to move the kids out to the pit when they came to do their little search warrant. So, or not even search warrant, just poking around. So if they had just put surveillance on him or the house, they probably would have seen it. But, and I'm just kind of inferring something that's not really there. After he like fucks the guy up in the parking lot, they're probably like, this guy's overreacting. We think he had nothing to do with it. So we're going to underreact to this guy instead of just putting a unit out watching him. So he fucks himself in that regard too. That's my opinion.
That's actually a good point that I didn't think about through because that's such an emotionally charged sequence in the film and it's right at the beginning. So that is a good point in retrospect. Because my point later on that I'm going to counter against happens later in the film. So this would precede that. Like, yeah, this is the first strike because that kind of fucked things up a little bit. And later in the film too, Jake Gyllenhaal, he says too, he's like, I would have been there. He's like, fucking let me know. I'll watch this anytime. You said we were going to have surveillance on him, on Hugh Jackman and the house of Alex Jones, you know, and the captain's like, yeah, okay, whatever, point taken, you know, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that idea too of that particular scene is even the story of, you know, there's this common, you know, idea too of like, oh yeah, people who go to prison for hurting kids are treated much worse. And that's like kind of satisfying to us as a society. Mm-hmm. And even the idea of the guy, you know, killing the guy who was molesting his kid in the airport.
Right.
But then on the counterpoint of that, and it really, if I knew somebody was like, if I saw somebody assaulting a kid, then you feel the justification and kind of like hurting them or taking their life because you know it for a fact. But then on the other end, you guys had your episode last week of, you know, the kid who gets railroaded for something he had absolutely nothing to do with, which then what this movie kind of does is like, yeah, he's a weird guy and he's not the best because, you know, he's hurting dogs. He's super weird. He did have something to do with it in some way. But then he's hurt and, you know, that's not justified because I think Steve made a good point of like the turn of you're not doing this to get your kid back anymore. This is just your outlet for the pain
Right.
and the frustration you feel of not being able to do anything.
Right. This
So,
turned
yeah.
into your emotional punching bag.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, because at the end of the day, how can you really know unless you saw it go down with your own eyes?
Yeah.
Like you walked into a child getting molested or in the act of being murdered. I mean, I think there's some cases where if you didn't see that, you know, you have the person dead to rights, but there's got to be a percentage, you know, of where you don't know. And maybe it is that case of like a Brenton Butler and this kid's just getting railroaded. But retracing the steps just slightly, I mean, that's an interesting thing about like human nature too, is like you can think about some things and take a moral stance on something until it hits you at home, you know, like right where you live. It's like that's the first thing that usually goes is people, like if in like an apocalypse situation or something fucking crazy happens, you know, all these moral like niceties and shit are going to go right out the fucking window, and it's going to be dog eat dog kind of situation. But you know, like if it's different, if you're thrust into this position, you could be like against the death penalty, right? But then you walk into a room, a guy's in the act of raping your child or murdering your child.
Yeah.
What are you going to do then? It's like, well, it's different. So now things are more flexible, things are more gray, and it happens just like that. You know, I don't know what to comment on that, right or wrong, like the philosophy of it. It's just it's different. It's interesting how, you know, when you're actually thrust into that, how are your supposed morals and your outlook on life going to hold up in that situation? And what does that say about you and society as a whole?
It's kind of on the flip side too, where you know, at the beginning of this, you feel that, you know, kind of rush and thrill of, you know, yeah, he's getting this guy, he's going after him, he's going to get his kid back, he's doing what he's got to do. But then if you were like, what if I was accused of that, knowing 100%, you know, I was not involved, you know, and there's nothing you could say. Like, I don't know where your kids are, and you're just being tortured, you know, uncontrollably. So then it's, and to kind of go off your point, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it is an interesting idea because it's so much based on a little bit of your social construct. So I live in South Korea, and the laws there are very different. And so one thing that foreigners have, especially, you know, me myself living there, but a lot of foreigners have, is the idea of their laws there, where it's a lot more proportional blame. So for instance, if I am walking down the street late at night and I see a man beating on a woman in Korea, and I go to physically stop him, even if it's just a shove, even if it's something like that, and then the police are called, I am now proportionally responsible for I actually assaulted him. I did actually assault him. Even if it was to protect somebody else, they'll say, you stand at the end of the alley and you call the police, and the police are there to handle it. As a citizen, you have some proportional blame in this. Of course, that guy, he's going to get charged with a much higher crime, but there's no vigilante justice in Korea. There is no, you can assault somebody. You can protect yourself in a, you know, to a certain extent in these situations, but I can't just be like, I'm going to go like, and especially not, I'm going to go like beat the shit out of this guy saying like, I saved this woman. It's not like that. And so it's really difficult because I say like, thank God I've never been put in that situation, because I essentially would have a really hard time with my own personal morality to say, I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to stand down here, I'll watch this guy beat this woman, potentially kill her, hurt her really bad, and just like not do anything, you know, while I'm obviously calling the police or whatever. But I would lose my whole life. I would get deported. I would potentially face, you know, some kind of fine or a charge of maybe some light assault or something. And it's like, that's really hard for a lot of foreigners to deal with. Yeah. Because it goes against our idea of morality of like, I have an obligation to stand in and protect somebody. Whereas Koreans don't have that because that's their laws. It's like, of course I call the police. Of course I'm not Batman and get involved, you know?
Right.
So it's interesting.
Dude, that's interesting. It just made me think about, okay, and this isn't like bagging on Koreans and like their customs and the way that is, but it's like, okay, what if you're on the corner and you see someone dangling from a fire escape? and they're like, help. And it's like a 30-40 foot fall. And they're like, maybe they'll die. They're going to be injured really badly. Do you have to just sit and be like, hey, I sat back, I called the cops, I didn't say anything, or emergency services to come help them, and I waited, versus I go under there and I fucking break their fall, if they do fall, and I try to assist in that situation.
Well, the thing is, somebody would have to charge you. So if you save somebody's life, they wouldn't press charges against you for assault, probably. But for instance, if somebody's beating a woman and I go to stop him and I push him away and the cops show up and they're like, we got you, you asshole, we got you. But then he can also, as a vengeance for I got involved in his situation, be like, well, this man assaulted me, you need to press. I'm also getting charges pressed on me, but I'm pressing charges on this man who got in my way. And they'd have to, they'd be obligated to press charges on me. If I literally was if me and the woman both were like, how did you stop this man from killing this woman? Well, I assaulted him. I hit him with a rock. I pushed him over or whatever. And okay, well, that's assault. So, we can charge you with assault. You admitted it. So so somebody has to be there to press charges on you.
All right, let me ask.
So you're saying maybe the Korean police would maybe look the other way in certain situations?
Well, I'm saying if you broke somebody's fall to save their life, I doubt the person whose fall you broke would press charges.
They're not going to be like, he fucking helped me.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they're not going to press charges on you. Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions. One, I thought Jim, you were asking if in Korea they are discouraging you from getting involved, then there also cannot be a duty to render aid to somebody just in general, the person who somebody you see in danger. It's if I'm not allowed to get involved, I'm not getting involved. Is that what you were saying? I can't imagine.
No, but that sounds like a more intelligent. So I'll take that one.
Edit that whole part out.
The other question I would have, or it would actually be advice or the unpopular opinion corner of the week. I wouldn't recommend anybody, even in the United States, getting involved in any kind of domestic issue like that for two reasons. One, it's really one main reason that kind of umbrellas down into others. You don't know what's actually going on when you see this situation going on in the street.
Sure.
So
that's fair.
I've watched a ton.
Yeah, what if that chick had a knife that you didn't see and had stabbed that dude already
stabbed
and he was
him,
trying to get away.
If she that's one example. If she's the initial physical aggressor and you come in and defend her, now so two, what if you get involved, you beat the shit out of her boyfriend, and she's in an abusive relationship and she turns on you everything was fine with us until this fucking guy jumped in.
Yeah.
Number three example I can think of is, what if the guy is an undercover cop and he's in the middle of a lawful arrest and the woman's fighting back and she's like, this guy's beating me up, and you get involved. Now you're potentially going to get your ass beat and arrested by a cop.
That's all good points. Yeah.
It sounds shitty, but it's
for you, your own self and your own viewfinder, your best bet is to fucking just fuck off and call the cops and
yeah.
And honestly, that's kind of the Korean mentality, is you are not a professional. You're not a police officer. There is no Batman. There's no, you're a citizen. You call the police and you go through these lawful things. And if somebody dies, that's very unfortunate, but it's not on you. I think, I have to do, and it kind of goes back to this point. I have to do something for myself, for my own morality. I have to, protect somebody. I have to save somebody. I have to do whatever action I can to make the difference. I'm the difference. But over there, that's kind of an individualistic kind of thing, right? Of I'm going to say, but over there, it's more about society and community. So it's you're not a police officer. You're not fucking Batman. You call the police. And also, too, in any kind of confrontation, you're obligated to escape if possible. So if somebody assaults you, you're the safest way is you run away and then you call the police and then we'll try to find this guy. That's kind of like their baseline of like laws. So it's really interesting. It's really
Yeah.
difficult for a lot of foreigners to kind of like abide by 100%. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably do an entire show just about different laws in Korea.
Mhm.
Like, it sounds really interesting. I'd be curious to hear more about it. The only other thing I would caution somebody against getting involved is the ultimate worst case scenario is you interject yourself in that scenario and you get killed.
Yeah. There's always
yeah.
that too.
So,
Sure, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I hope people think about what's really worth it before getting involved in something. Is it worth your life? Probably not. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Well, was it you guys? It was either you guys talking about it. What you just said remind me. It was either you guys talking about, or I heard it recently, anyways. And I've just been listening to you guys a lot. But it was the kind of the same idea of saving somebody who's drowning. Okay, it's actually really difficult to save somebody who's drowning unless you're a trained professional and you've got some gear on you. It's really difficult. And the most likely outcome is like if I'm just fucking Joe Blow walking down the street and somebody's drowning and I try to save them, probably what's going to happen is they are going to drown and they're going to pull me down with them.
Yeah.
Like most likely is what's going to happen. And so that's like that's kind of like the same idea. If you can kind of train your brain to think about it in different ways, is that's kind of the same idea of like, what if you just get killed again? Yeah, but America's got that different mentality. But it's like, what if I just go and blast it?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of
So
like
I'm a good guy with the gun. I'm gonna just like,
Yeah.
So different mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super interesting. That
Anyways,
that you have
crazy
that.
tangent.
No, that's cool. I mean, it ties into the whole morality, the part, what would you do? And then what's like where you're from, what is the social custom, like what's socially acceptable. And that's interesting to have that perspective on it too. I think we left off. I want to get into Gyllenhaal for sure, because he's a big part of this. And I thought he had a really good performance, and his character was interesting too, because to go back what you were saying, Juice, about his, like, he's the more straight-laced, and he walks a more like Law and Order kind of line, but I also like there's nuance in there too, because you see like his neck tattoo, he's got tattoos on his fingers, kind of his mentality. And when he's talking to that first priest, like, I was in the Huntington Boys home, or
Yeah.
I can't remember, was that what boys school
Something
for
like that.
6 years,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, I'm assuming like a religious, school for bad boys. And he's like, I wouldn't have any problems beating the shit out of an old fuck like you, like this priest. So it seems like I can't remember if I read it in some of the background or if they mentioned that he was like an orphan, or like he didn't know his mom and dad, but I think that was part of like him talking about the character, like behind the scenes. But so like his background was like he had been kind of an orphan, passed around the foster system, so he's got some rough edges to him too, and he was able to like come out of that. But you can see those scars and those rough edges by the tattoos. And he's always wearing, like, you notice, like the tight collar, like the button-up shirt all the way up to the button,
all the way to the top.
And there's scenes too when he's talking to like the aunt, and he's talking to people that aren't like a suspect. He hides it, but then there's in scenes where it's more like he's trying to make it more prominent by showing, the left side of his face when he's talking to Bobby Taylor, who is played by David Dostmalchin. I got the pronunciation right. I really liked his character too. So Steve, he was the squirrely guy, Bobby Taylor, and like he kind of looks like a Russian dude. He played a Russian dude in Ant-Man, who was actually pretty funny.
Yeah,
but,
the scene where Gyllenhaal comes to his front door was like one of my favorite ones.
Fuck, that's such a good scene, man.
Yeah.
Oh, the squirrely guy who they arrest and kills himself or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got
that scene too is fucking intense too. Like, it's super powerful.
Also a reason why, if you're a cop, you probably don't want to go, because he put his hands on the first guy a little bit, and then this guy, and that's
he's bending.
That's kind of one of the reasons why you don't want to do that, because they can grab your gun and then fucking shoot themselves in the face. Luckily, he didn't kill them, but
yeah. I mean, that's what I like about this too, is it kind of shows like the other side of the coin, warts and all. It's like, that's a major fuck up too. And that's the reality of, or that's a consequence of him being a hothead in the moment and giving into impulse and emotion, and letting that wall between, you know, like Law and Order break down in his moment of emotion, because he's becoming just it's just kind of, it's almost like a virus or something that's being passed like through osmosis from Jackman, because Jackman's given Gyllenhaal shit too, you know, like, where are you? He's like, this is your fault, you know, like, why are you wasting time with me? And like, he doesn't have a very high opinion of him too from the outset, I don't think, because he seems younger.
Can you imagine ever talking to a fucking cop like that whose job is to find your kid?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Well, let me ask y'all, because I felt like I had a little more problems with some of the writing of this movie. Ultimately, I really liked the themes, but for a kind of mystery thing, I was like kind of confused by some of it, and I thought maybe some of it was a little sloppy. So this guy, this second swirly guy, who's in the house, he's got the mazes all on the walls. It got the fucking snakes, you know? So going back to the idea of the snake venom and stuff like that, what the fuck was the connection was the ant connected in any way?
That's what I was thinking about. I was talking with my wife about this back and forth, because she just watched it like haphazardly, like recently, like 2 weeks ago, before I planned on this. So we were talking about it earlier and had an interesting discussion, because I was dead set like, okay, yeah, he's like an extension, like how the aunt, who's the mastermind of all this shit and killing these kids, and her like war against God retribution thing. So Paul Dano, Alex Jones, was the first kid that they abducted, and for whatever reason, maybe they had a bond or they attached. He was the first and only that they kept, and then over the years, as you can see, they used him as like bait in their scheme of.
Well, I think they used him as a replacement for their kid that died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's more so. I think because like at the end they were saying he just wanted to play with him in the RV, and it truly was like, you know, she is the mastermind behind all this stuff, and it wasn't. But I was thinking like, yeah, maybe they used him for that. But I was thinking this other guy, Bobby Taylor, played by David Dastmalchian. People know him. He played the fucking Polka Dot Man from Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
he's a great actor. He's in he has a bit part in Blade Runner 2049 also. I think another Villeneuve's a big fan of this guy. He was in the newest Dune as well. He played like one of the lower henchmen in Dune. He's a great actor. He was in The Dark Knight as well. He played that fucking freaky, dressed up as a cop. He's this guy specifically, he's got an interesting story how he got into films and stuff. It's a feel good story of like someone like sticking with their craft and like making it. That's a huge aside. But yeah, I thought, oh, okay, like he was a former abducted kid as well, and he got away, or he was somehow given like agency, and I thought he was working like as like an arm of the ant, and I thought mainly because he's holding all the snakes, I thought he was like, you know, maybe a guy that she can use to run interference, or like maybe assist in the abducting of some children, because she doesn't have her old partner in crime was her husband. So I thought he was maybe a stand-in for that, and he had all the snakes, so I thought that was like maybe how she was cultivating her venom for that shot to take out the kids. But after this watch, I was firmly in the camp of, oh no, he just got away somehow. Yeah, and that's another problem I have. It's like, you'd stay in the same fucking town though. It's like, that's kind of weird. But anyway, so yeah, he stays in the same town. But the things that he's doing, like taking the pig blood and stealing the clothes, some of it is spoken by the coroner, how he's talking about like, you know, he's in fantasy land. He's just play acting because that's what he's doing. I saw some like behind the scenes, like with Villeneuve talking about it and stuff. And it's like, yeah, he was so scarred, and he's a little bit higher functioning than Paul Dano's character, but he's so scarred from like the abuse and everything that he went into. It's all he knows, that he's reenacting what the ant is doing. So that's why you find the two mannequins buried in the front yard. And like, he has that makes snakes, more sense. Like maybe it's a ritual kind of thing. And he goes and steals the clothes, and he kills a pig and uses pig blood on it to make it, to like arrange it like, this is my crime scene. Like this is my form of vengeance, because it's all I know. it was extrapolated on a little bit better than that, but that's so having that background obviously changed my perspective. But this time, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, and he is connected to this lady in that he underwent her abuse and he got away, but it's different. And he's just an independent. This is where like the red herring comes in. He is a red herring, but he also is tied to the greater case. And if he wasn't killed, because he's more higher functioning, potentially the cops could have been able to get something out of him, or he would have been a more valuable resource in tracing the current missing kids. That was my take on it this time, that I was like, oh yeah, he's not connected. Because before I was like, for sure, oh yeah, he's like doing shit for the aunt on the side. Steve, what do you think about what his character was? Did you think he was connected with the aunt in her abduction scheme, or no, not at all?
No, not at all. I just assumed that he was a kid who escaped, who was trying to like piece together his past with all the mazes and shit. And yeah, because when you first started,
mazes is another big theme in this, because like at the end, the very end, you find out it's like she leaves a little note on these maze books, like if you find the end of this maze, you can get out. So then like this kid that got out, he's just fixated on that, and so he's got mazes drawn all over his walls and everywhere. So he's a prisoner of this maze that she's created mentally and like actually. And he's constantly trying to get out of. Maybe that's why he's reliving this cycle, and he's becoming the monster and reproducing the crimes with like mannequins and buying children's clothes. But fuck, to go back to that scene though, like when Jake Gyllenhaal's like, he's like, hey,
why'd you run from me the other day?
Yeah, what? Yeah. Dude, that whole interplay. And like, I saw you buying children's clothes at the Value Mart. And he's like, did I do that? I must have been in a hurry. Like there, Gyllenhaal knows. He's like, I got you, motherfucker. Because when you're watching it the first time, you think, dude, this guy's in on something. Why would he run from the vigil? Like this guy, look at this slimy motherfucker at the door, like being just, this guy plays a creep really well.
Yeah, they got the guy. They pick some swirly guys all throughout to like throw you off for sure.
The only thing I recognize that Paul Dano guy from after the fact was Little Miss Sunshine, because I don't watch any movies, and I was like, holy shit, he looks quite a bit different.
Dude, he was in I think he was in one, I think it was like My Best Friend's Girlfriend or something, where Alicia Cuthbert, maybe it's someone else, she plays like a porn star, and she gets with this like 17-year-old kid, and Paul Dano is like one of the friends. He was in a couple like teen like Hangover style comedies, but since that point he's gone on, like I think he played one of the Beach Boys.
Oh, really?
And they did a Beach Boy biopic with John Cusack. He's fucking awesome in that. If you've never seen There Will Be Blood, man,
that movie.
It's such a good fucking movie. Daniel Day-Lewis is awesome in it, but Paul Dano's in it. He's been in a ton of shit where he's like he said he's attracted to like the darker side of like the human condition, and like severely like damaged and developmentally wrecked types of people, and he plays a lot of those characters. Like the most recent, probably he was the Riddler in the new Batman reboot that was very dark. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. He's kind of a chameleon within like these dark kind of like really nuanced characters. But yeah, I thought he did a hell of a job in this film, like for as little that he says, like the how much he emotes, the physical acting in this. Like I totally bought that he was like an almost catatonic, like stuck in 10 to 15-year-old kid mindset, and there was little flashes where he wanted to help, and those little things come out. And I think once you sit with this and you get to the end, it's like it hits you even more. It's like, because against all odds and everything that's been inflicted on this poor kid, you come to find out like he's just another victim. He still was able to try. He wanted to help the dad. You could tell like throughout the whole thing, he was trying to drop clues. He just wasn't. He was so damaged that he wasn't able to.
And there was also the occasional clues that he might be like the ultimate psychopath. When he
fucks with the dog, it's like that's another kind of red herring where it's like it's trying to aim you toward like, yeah, this is a really sick fuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I lost all sympathy for him from beginning to end, no problem. But Mrs. Birch, when she comes in and is like trying to talk to him and being nice, and he breaks the window and like starts trying to stab people, it's like, oh, fuck,
yeah,
he might be an ultimate predator, who's just putting on this facade of.
I took that like he was just trying to kill himself, like he was trying to end it. So I took that maybe a little bit differently.
By stabbing everyone else in the room.
Is that what he did?
Is he like going? Did he actually stab some? I think he did actually stab.
I think he
Hugh
slashed
or
at
something, or
her.
did he? Yeah.
And then he had the thing in his hand.
See,
well,
I still chalk that.
Yeah.
I still chalk that up to him just like lashing out, not knowing what to do, and being in that completely like destroyed mindset of where he was, whatever hell he's been into for the last 15 years or 20 years, however long he'd been abducted. But
well, and that's where I was like, and probably a second watch would do me really good with this kind of movie. But there were times where I felt that there were inconsistencies that by the end of the film, I thought they were kind of like necessary things to ultimately get where you needed to go. But if you pulled at the thread, it would get like the sweater would kind of start to fall apart a little bit. But it was like those kind of things, like this character's capabilities. He has the mindset of a 10-year-old. He's locked up for 48 hours where he's being questioned and says nothing. And then as soon as he's in front of the dad, he lets something slip. Yeah. And then later, he just so happens to fuck with dogs. And, he's like fights back sometimes, but only when it's convenient to make him look like, again, potentially he could still be involved. And again, too, the whole idea of he did take them in the camper or whatever. Yeah. And then they did a sweep of it and they were like, we found absolutely nothing. I was like, okay, if they were actually in the camper, then you wouldn't have not found anything. You would have found something.
Well, to that point, the guy, one of the guys that had gone through the RV said, he's like, Gyllenhaal's like, you didn't find any wool fibers, any cotton fibers, nothing. He's like, no, everything's clean. He's like, if there were some kind of a struggle, we would have found something for sure. So maybe that explains that, maybe not.
But fingerprints, like, you would have found like children's fingerprints in there. I know they wouldn't have them on record or anything, but
yeah, they could have been like, they
were probably just looking for like blood or.
Yeah, blood or
I don't know what
their
protocol is when they're searching. I don't either. Things. I'd be curious to see like what's their checklist, like to triage this camper.
So I watched it this morning and went on a walk later, and it took me forever to make the connection. That's my cat, by the way. She's being very mouthy. To make the connection of the camper was parked in front of the vacant house, and when I was first watching it and they're like, oh yeah, this house has been vacant for whatever, I was like, checking the fucking house. Maybe that's where he put them, kind of like black phone, in the other house. And then hours later I was out on a walk. I was like, holy shit, that's where he used to live. And even if he doesn't remember, his old family.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't, or if it's subconscious, it took him there.
Yeah. I did not make that connection.
Yeah. That's I didn't the first watch, but this time I rewatched parts of this like 2 or 3 times to like prep for this and really get into it. But it took, I think, the third watch of like the last third that really stuck out to me. Like, oh shit, yeah, that's the significance of him being there at the beginning. And like I was just going for a drive. He's like replaying like whether conscious or subconscious, like just going there to that spot. There was some kind of link in his mind.
I think that was the thing that bothered me too, and that like it's interesting to look at this other character as potentially like an escaped kid victim, because they did question it, but then I was still asking the question where he's like, he's got the mentality of a 10-year-old, but he's capable of taking the test and getting a license. And I was like, yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. They call that out themselves within the movie.
Yeah.
Like Hugh Jackman's like, what the fuck? That is a good point.
And this other guy too, he's super squirrely, and like you go into his house and his house is in complete disarray, where it's like this guy maybe doesn't actually look like he's capable of taking care of himself. He's got all these snakes and these kids' clothes, but at the end of the day, for some reason, he has a house, and he also at least has money to pay for things. He's dressing, he's going to vigils with the mentality of like, these are the kids that are abducted, sneaking in, capable enough to sneak into somebody's house,
right?
Go to a children's bedroom, take their clothes, but also not mentally capable enough to like go to the police. So it's
I
a
think
little
that's
loose.
why the first time I was like, he must be under the arm of the aunt. Like she's like giving him money, like a monthly like allowance to be able to support himself. Because like I can't really see that guy like performing a 9 to 5. Maybe if it's something, maybe he fucking just works a gas station from like third shift or something. That's how he gets by. But yeah, I did notice that too, because there is a car in the driveway. Yeah, he's got a house. He's able to obviously go to this valley market or whatever and buy things. Like he understands that. And so yeah, how is he doing that while juggling this fucking extreme mania of drawing mazes on his walls and burying fucking mannequins in his front yard? How do you reconcile those things? But one person we didn't touch on, I guess for a point of levity, because I saw one review of this and it was like a knock against it, which I don't take this as a knock against the film, but they're like, there's no humor in this film. Like, that's not what kind of fucking film this is. But I mean,
there's no humor.
There really
and no
is
Country
zero.
for Old Men either. Yeah.
There's not one point of levity. I'm fine with that.
I will say
bother me.
there is humor in No Country for Old Men, but we can come back to that. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
There's a connection. Sure Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, director of photography of this film, did No Country for Old Men as well. Frequent collaborator of the Coen brothers. Actually, he's done a lot of them. I want to talk about him before we get out of here too. He's got a really cool. He's got like a who's list of shit he's worked on. But I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You were talking about
levity.
Some cunty review.
Zero levity.
Yeah.
In this film. So I'm going to insert some right now. What about we didn't talk about her at all, but the Hugh Jackman's wife, Maria Bello.
Yeah.
I mean, she serves her purpose. She like the scene where she's crying and like she doesn't understand. That's pretty fucked up. It's pretty affecting. And but have you guys ever seen? It's a mid to late 2000s movie. She's in it with William H. Macy called The Cooler. It's a gambling movie too.
No, I've heard of it, but I've never
Baldwin
seen
in
it.
I've never seen it,
dude. There's a scene with her. And she's making out with some dude. It might be William H. Macy. Dude, she's making out with him and like fucking bumping and grinding. Dude, she's a fucking smoke show, man. Like that scene that in that movie, every time it's like, dude, I gotta cross my fucking legs for this
popping
part,
the Q-Che, G baby, damn.
Dude, full Che, full staff.
Let me turn the lights down. What does that have to do with the levity in this movie at all? Or
not this movie. For this discussion, I just wanted to point out she is a fine-looking woman, and dude, it's this that scene in The Cooler is like exceptionally like it's like
jerkable.
This is a bad woman. Like she's maybe even 5 minutes. Like anyway. We've been going on a serious bent for like an hour straight. I needed to include that because
okay. The funny part of No Country for Old Men that I was talking about was where Sugar uses the cattle prod thing to like blast in the trailer door, and then Tommy Lee Jones and his little piece of shit guy with him, they come and they look around, and like the glass of milk is there and it's still cold, and they're like, we need to put out a bulletin, Sarge. And he's like, for what? Someone who has recently drunk milk?
Drink milk?
I fucking love that part so much. I probably butchered it, but I love it so much. Yeah.
Good call.
I like the part where it's with the old man and the coin flipping part. And like
Dude,
just like
that scene.
the
Call
glance
it.
that he gives him, that part always gives me a
So
chuckle.
good.
Call it.
Oh, gives you a chuckle.
Well, he gives him there's a certain point where Javier Bard, is that who it is?
Yeah, Javier.
Yeah.
He gives him like this look where he's like, think about it, like that.
Well, when he
gives him a
says, "Don't put
glance.
it in your pocket," well, he's like, he's like, "Don't put it in your pocket, then it'll just become another quarter."
Just another
Yeah, and then he gives him the little
and then
kind
he
of
gives
thing.
him the
That
little look.
always
Yeah.
gives me a chuckle.
Don't
part.
put it in your
Because he's
pocket.
just so cold-blooded motherfucker,
Yeah.
and how he acts like that in the same breath. Or at the end when he kills Woody Harrelson, gives me a chuckle too, because you see like Harrelson just totally bitch out. He's like, "There's a cash machine. I'll go get you." And it's just,
Damn, that's a damn good movie. Oof.
Don't put
I
it
haven't
in
seen
your
that in a
pocket.
minute.
I love
'Cause it'll
that
just
movie.
be another
Yeah, don't
coin,
which
which
it
it's
is.
not.
Dude, I just watched
Crazy, dude.
not too long ago. There's a really good Hot Ones episode with Josh Brolin, who played Llewellyn in
Yeah.
No Country. Have you seen that episode with him, Steve?
I don't think so.
I know you're a fan of Hot Ones.
I am, yeah. I don't think I have.
I'm not gonna ruin it. I'm not gonna spoil it here. Then you should watch it if you're a fan of Hot Ones. He's top tier. He's got like Hot Ones guest for sure. He catapulted into the top 3 for me like immediately.
Oh, wow.
Are you a Hot Ones? Have you ever seen Hot Ones before, Soju?
No, not really. I don't follow it closely. I've seen like a handful, but yeah, I don't follow it a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. I've seen some, but not all.
Yeah.
Of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's 10 I could say off the top of my head that are they're gold. They're awesome. They're really good. And
I mean, the
Josh
DJ
Brolin's in
Khaled
it.
one, DJ Khaled's the best. Where he just
That's
fucking
so-
bitches out.
Dude, him and the follow-up with TJ Miller
Yeah.
talking shit about fucking DJ Khaled is so fucking funny. Dude, Shaq was on it. He was pretty funny on it.
Can I read my favorite cunty review of Prisoners
Yes,
that I
and
found?
I have one pulled up too that I think you'll get a good chuckle at too. So yeah, hit it.
I'm gonna bet you $1 we have the same one.
Did you look on IMDb?
It was either that or Rotten Tomatoes. I can't remember, but this one was so incredibly cunty. I meant to include the guy who wrote it just to shame him, but I forgot to. So here's the review.
Hit me.
Piece of shit.
Thrill me.
An increasingly sloppy thriller filled with obvious clues, laughable red herrings, and half-hearted, quote-unquote, shock reveals, played at a snail's pace that lets far too much air into the narrative. Fuck you, guy.
That's such a fart sniffy bad review. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just it just seems like someone really up their own ass.
Yeah.
I got
Thumbs
one.
up their asses.
Yeah, I got one I think you're gonna like better.
Okay.
Strictly off the title of this review alone, this is a 1 out of 10 on IMDb. The movie that ate my brain. Worst ever. This is the worst movie I've seen in so long. I can't remember a worse movie. Perhaps there was one that was worse in the past, but this movie is the new champion of worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I rarely write reviews. Nice.
Doubt it.
But this piece of crud is such a waste of time.
Oh my god.
Going
This
so
piece
hard
of
to
poop.
goes so hard in the paint and uses drops crud.
Crud.
It's such a waste of time that I'm writing it for those people that enjoy Hugh Jackson. I like his stuff and want to see a movie with him in it. Even the acting stunk.
Hugh Jackson?
Including
Isn't that the
Hugh.
former defensive coordinator for the Oakland Raiders? Oh, she means Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman?
No, the
No, yeah, they were. Yeah,
Sorry.
even the acting stunk, including Hugh. I guess torture really isn't his bag. What the fuck does that mean? If I could give this movie a -1,000, I would.
oh my lord.
That person sounds fucking deranged, man. Like
Person sounds like a
that's
12-year-old.
Does it
that's
have
insane.
do they have a screen name?
On to your butts.
Does that person have a screen name?
Oh yeah, this is the Pepper Landers. Delivered on the 5th of December 2013 on IMDb.
All right. There you go. How do I get my reviews on IMDb? Damn. That guy's on
that
there.
was right after it came out,
I don't
right?
write reviews.
I love, dude, without fail, I rarely write reviews, although it usually comes earlier in the statement, but you're so full of shit.
Yeah, that's a very Yelpy thing to say.
Yeah. I don't know. The only thing I could see people really knocking this movie is if for some reason somebody made you watch a film and you weren't into kind of dark films, because it is very heavy, it's a heavy film.
Like if this weren't your genre and it weren't your bag, that's the only way you could see someone not getting something out of it.
Yeah, and I do think there are times where they play loose with points of the story, or at least make you read into them or leave them ambiguous in order to service the kind of symbolism or the overall like meaning of, like the religious aspects or the moral aspects and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't get any of that. I think the acting's good, The only I really liked Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this. Again, I liked seeing him play this kind of character because I guess he doesn't have to do anything too crazy. And I guess in some regards, it's not anything over the top, but I think just that shows kind of a little bit of kind of self-control, of not needing it to be some wacky character, wackadoo character, anything like that,
Yeah, if you're saying like he feels kind of realistic or grounded, I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. Like, and his scenes where he does go over the top, I think there's only 2 that I can think of. They're very like punctuated and like it's an impulsive action. Like when and it's understandable. Like, on his watch, this guy killed himself because of his impulse and like getting caught up in the moment. And his reaction, he fucking like, throws some shit
breaks
off
his
of his
keyboard.
desk and breaks his keyboard.
That's fine. Yeah.
Which is, I thought that was a little cheap too. It's like, oh, now you're just fucking realizing. It's like, it was plain to see when you went down in that fucking cryptic ass basement that this motherfucking like decomposed fucking corpse, there's a shiny, I saw it right away. I was like, that's interesting. It's a fucking weird looking mate.
Yeah,
you would have noticed that, but that's part of the kind of the Hollywood, and it had to. I mean, that's the one cheap part about this is like, oh, it took him freaking out, and he looks down, and it's like, like the fucking tool man. Like, I didn't even think about this. Yeah, I should have.
When he started breaking his desk and shit, I was like, he's gonna find something here.
Yeah, I think that's the only weak like cliche kind of point in this film, but yeah, besides that, he plays it pretty straight, and like the moments of like emotion or like when he gets amped up are very short and kind of like punctuated and feels realistic. Even like when he's trying to calm down Hugh Jackman, he's like, I understand, I get it. I'm asking you questions. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this case. He's trying to play it pretty straight, which I guess to throw it to Hugh Jackman too. We haven't talked about this at this point yet, but I thought his performance was great. Like, he fucking knocked it out of the park as like, he's got scars from, you find out his dad committed suicide when he was a teenager. He was an only child. Obviously meant the world to him because he's still sharing, things with his own son about how his dad raised him. So you could tell there's like some reverence there, but, just like his emotional, like from an acting, from a craft perspective, I thought Hugh Jackman fucking nailed it. Like he left nothing on the table for this role, and I totally bought him as like a fucking conflicted, wrecked father in this instance. And then on the other hand too, Terrence Howard, like the character he was playing, like I pretty much bought, like his reaction and like his take on dealing with that kind of loss. Although I'm not the world's biggest Terrence Howard fan. I've come to find some weird shit about him later on. Like, I think I don't want to speak ill of him if that's not true. I want to say there was some like domestic abuse charge or some kind of weirdness that happened, but he's also on this like weird, like thinking train of like, he has this like alternate, like kind of like
Math.
a flat earther perspective.
Yeah, he doesn't agree with math.
Do you know this?
With
He thinks like
math?
2 + 2 is 5 and shit. Like
What?
some really weird, like foundational, like it's like quasi Scientology.
It's something like that,
It's something
where
fucking weird.
Yeah, it's like 1 times 0 is not 0. It's actually 1. Like, it's
I wish
weird.
I had enough money to get caught up in shit like that. I wish I had time to just sit around and think, maybe, 1 times 0 isn't 0.
Yeah, it's like I've never
Zero
been that.
actually counts for something.
I've never been that baked, dude. I did think, without shitting on the movie again, but when Gyllenhaal finally decides to follow Jackman, it's the first time he doesn't park at the apartment. He parks at the liquor store. Because
Yeah, that's a good
every other
point.
time he parks in the driveway.
Well, was there a point where
Well,
he
he
like looked
saw
in the
him-
rear view and was like, I better make a fucking
They didn't
Oh,
show
no,
it.
no, no, right now, or
You're right. That is weird. That is a weird detail because he was walking that way when he heard the horns of
Yeah.
the car and he stopped and he like circled around. That was weird. Yeah. Huh. Oh.
if true, good point. That is a knock, but I can't remember specifically. But
Well, I specifically remember him like pulling up into that building and I was like, man, you're really fucking dumb because it has not only is your
Yeah.
pretty like distinct car, but it's got your fucking business name.
it has your
Yeah.
entire
First
Christian
name,
name
last
on
name,
it.
truck.
Phone number.
Dude, I'm burning up in my little mini studio, but before we do, I just wanted to flash and give props to my wife. For my birthday was a couple days ago. She fucking
hell yeah.
big fan of the show and supporter. She got a Waxing the Porpoise
Oh,
Oh.
nice. That
hoodie
looks
made
clean,
for me,
dude.
which is pretty rad.
I like
But
that.
Very
I'm
nice.
I'm melting right now.
Whoa, pop that bad boy off. Let's go ahead and pop that off, guy.
Oh my god, he's taking his pants off too. That's
Whoa,
weird.
oh,
So,
gee, baby.
Shout out to
Woo.
wife of G Baby for the dope hoodie. She also supplied the on air thing
Nice.
that I have. It's pretty neat.
Cool.
I was like, dude, this is like a cool.
You're like
radio
official
DJ
now,
booth
damn, dude. I know.
Sorry.
So, I guess I have another quick issue. The
Nitpick.
what was the first daughter? Joy. That was the first daughter they found.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So when she's in the hospital and she looks at Hugh Jackman, she like recoils.
Yeah.
It-
That was
That's
another kind of red herring. I felt like is she trying to, because they place in there too when Jake Gyllenhaal goes down into the fucker's basement and he sees the lie.
yes.
It's
Yeah,
trying to aim you at like, oh, hey, Jake Gyllenhaal might be having second thoughts about Hugh Jackman. Audience, I was like, no, come on, man.
So, but then he takes off, and then Gyllenhaal takes off, thinking he knows he's going to the torture basement, but he gets there and he's not there. So you would think that would cause a little bit of pause with him. I mean, he can hear the guy moaning, which helps the story progress to him going inside. Like, if he had got there looking for Jackman and he wasn't there, he might think like,
Yeah.
I wonder where he was actually going. Maybe to the other guy's house, but I don't know. I don't really have a problem with it.
I bought
I
it just
ju-
because
yeah.
he heard the moaning, so that would
Well, right. Yeah, that's
draw him to where's
the
this coming from.
entree.
Right.
And then when it's like, oh, this guy gets returned to his mom, like, yeah, if he wasn't fucked up before, this guy is an absolute nightmare now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also too, I guess I had I guess you don't get to spend a lot of time with it too, but I was like, the police literally went to this woman's house and confiscated this camper. And again, it's just like the way that they show that this pit, it's like a piece of wood, it's just like, let me slide this piece of wood over this hole. And I was just like, I guess we don't really know if the kids are down there or not, but I mean, it heavily implies that they are because the whistle's found down there and stuff like that. I know they talk about moving the kids and that's how the girl was able to escape. And we do a flashback of them in the house at some point, but I was like, I don't know. You're just, it's a little hard to buy that just a piece of wood is able to keep out any kind of sound to kids to be like, help, I'm down here. Or Hugh Jackman to be like, what the fuck? I'm over here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the acoustics, and it seems like it wouldn't do jack shit. It seems like it would have to be like flush, like a super flush opening, and then a piece of plywood on over top. I would buy that more. But as you can see it, it looks like there's undulations in the ground, and like this piece of plywood's warped in and of itself. So even if it was on a flush piece of ground, it seems like there would be some room for. And I also thought too, is like, wouldn't the first thing they would like fucking take that car into the fucking, cop shop and chop it the fuck, like dismantle it similar to the way they did with the RV and check that out completely. And once they did, what's this piece of plywood? And then just shove it over. Like, there you go. Like that was kind of a hard pill for me to swallow.
I
no,
think
you don't feel so?
Because they went over the RV with a fine-tooth comb, right? So he took the kids to the house in the RV. They were in the house. And then she said they only took them out to the pit when the cops came to look around. And they wouldn't have seen the Trans Am that didn't move. And I doubt they would have
taken it. That's a contradiction in the movie, because she says, I didn't let them out until Alex was gone because I felt lonely.
Well, she didn't
to
let him out
me,
of
that
where?
would be like, what's that?
She didn't let him out of where? The room or the pit?
She doesn't say. She says I didn't let him out until Alex left to Hugh Jackman. Like,
well, from what I understand, she put him in the pit when the cops were there looking around, and then brought him back because that's where the other daughter saw him when he came back. So they were in the house the entire time.
Okay.
Other than the pit time.
But then somebody goes over to her house. What about when Hugh Jackman goes over to her house the first time?
The first time,
be in the pit?
Yeah, that's a confusing part.
No, they were in the room. That's when the other daughter saw him. Because when she sees...
and when she's in that stupor...
is that why she recoiled?
Yeah, she's like, I saw you there.
And that's what triggers Hugh Jackman. He's like, I know... I got dead to rights who this bitch is, and that's when he hauls ass out of the hospital.
Well then that that makes some more sense then. That's interesting.
Dude, that sucks though too. Like if you think about it from that end, like if Gyllenhaal was able to catch up with him, it would have taken him right to the killer, and Jackman would have been fine. But that's like a weird push and pull, because if he would have let Gyllenhaal get ahead of him, he would have arrested him. They never would have found that out. So I guess maybe this is a good point to earlier to counterpoint your, like Soju, when you said, Hugh Jackman from the get-go, from Jump Street, he shouldn't have done anything.
Well, that also, I was going to go back to Steve's point of where he said, when he attacks him in the beginning, if he hadn't, she wouldn't have been able to move the kids at all if somebody was surveilling their house.
That's true. Yeah, because
she wouldn't have been able to take the kids outside, and put them in a pit and then pull them out of a pit. So that's
a good point, and that kind of supersedes or undercuts what my counterpoint would be. But with all that said, my counterpoint was, if Hugh Jackman did nothing, versus so he goes and he fucking rampages and he still fucks with Paul Dano in the parking lot, and then later on he goes to Ant's house. If he wouldn't have done that, maybe I'm wrong. I was gonna say if he wouldn't have done that, they wouldn't have thought go back to that house, but those two aren't really related. So maybe that would have been the safest course, was him honestly to just play it like Terrence Howard did and let the professionals deal with it. Maybe they would have caught on.
No,
I don't know. I guess that's kind of just up to your interpretation. Steve, do you have a counter to that or a thought?
I would just say that the cops had given up on the Joneses at that point. If they had put surveillance on the Jones family, they might have seen something. But if they didn't, they weren't going back there.
Yeah. I guess I counterpoint to myself and kind of going off of what Steve's saying is this she's done this before. She's done this for 15 years or however long a long time. She's done that a long time. Got to be more than 15 years.
26.
So she's gotten away with it before, you know. So they probably wouldn't have got them. So yeah, maybe that's not right. Yeah.
Although one thing that we haven't touched on that's really interesting, that it seems at the beginning it seems like a red herring. So when Jake Gyllenhaal, when you say, you know, at the very beginning of this case, he's like, yeah, I got like 8 or 9 like perps or like, you know, like known pedophiles within like a 10-mile radius of the house that I know. So it makes it seem like maybe he checks on these people periodically, or at least he knows, okay, these 10 people and they're in our system, and he checks on like a white collar businessman. He kind of braises him, and then the second person he checks on is this priest, and then that's when he finds this secret subterranean like weird holding area that the priest has killed. So the aunt, who's the main bad guy in this film, she talks about her husband lovingly, and then you see later on when Jake Gyllenhaal's in the house, he sees he's got that fucking pendant, that maze pendant. That's when he knows for himself, like, oh, okay, I got this bitch dead to rights. But before, you know, you find this dead, decomposed body with this weird maze chain on its neck, and then the priest, you know, talks about he came in, he confessed to killing 16 children. He was like bragging about it, whatever. So Gyllenhaal, that's like tertiary or like a side quest to this main portion of this movie, but it ties back in 100% because, you know, later on you come to find out, okay, that guy that he actually that he found by just following up on his leads led to, like, this was actually the inception point. Like, the husband and wife team, they lost their child to cancer, and they felt like they had to lash out against God, like in general. So they were just going to inflict the pain that they felt by losing a child and, you know, delivering that onto any other Joe Blow that thought they were having a good life and snatching their child away from them mercilessly and inflicting that pain onto them. Like, so that was their ideological reasoning for going fucking off the res. But I liked how that tied back in, you know, because it turns out, you know, it was a red herring at the beginning because you think, oh, well, what's this thing? Is it separate from the children that are lost right now that we're covering? And it turns out in the end, it all comes around, you know, together in this town. In Pennsylvania, by the way, they don't make it explicit. That's what was interesting about this too, like where the setting is. You're not sure of the year. The only way you can infer the year, I think, is like they throw the term like 26 or 23 years later, and you see a news clipping from like 1976. So it puts it at like 2018 or 2019, something like that. And then the only way you can infer, I think there's a couple points where people are talking, but you also see Pennsylvania license plates. That's how you know we're in kind of the like a suburb area of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and at one point the chief, after Gyllenhaal lets the guy kill himself, the chief says, well, I guess we're not going to lose you to the PSP, which I think is the Pennsylvania State Police.
Right, yeah, the staties.
Okay. Yeah, I like the setting, like, in general. I like the setting of it kind of like getting cold. It matched the kind of miserable tone.
Yeah.
Just everything being bleak and uncomfortable. And also, too, I like the idea, and that was the idea of at the very end where they show it looks like it's at the absolute coldest of that, just adding to the fact that Hugh Jackman is in the hole. Not only is he fucking shot and bleeding, but it's fucking freezing cold out. So, yeah, I thought the setting worked for the tone of the film in general.
Hold on, I gotta take a piss real quick.
Number 6, man urinates on fellow passenger for not being allowed to smoke.
I'll just jump in and talk about, we mentioned his name earlier, and I wanted to go through his filmography because it's pretty fucking like untouchable, honestly. So the full cast and crew. So the director of photography, cinematographer, whatever you like, of this film was Roger Deakins, and I know he's a huge name. I didn't come across this guy or like understand like the gravity of like the kind of shit that he's worked on until Blade Runner 2049, which is pretty late in his career. He did that was in 2017, and I was a huge Blade Runner OG fan, so that's why I like, I poured through every detail of 2049, and he jumped out at me, and obviously too because Denis Villeneuve also directed Blade Runner 2049. I think Steve, for you, that's another.
Yeah, can we ask Justin at this point what he thought of Blade Runner versus 2049? Because I've only seen the first one. I didn't really care for it.
So actually, I haven't seen the first one. I've only seen the second one.
Don't.
Yeah.
And did you like the second one? I've only seen
the second one. I really dug the style. I think I only watched it once, and I think at the time I was like, I feel like there's some things I don't understand or that I don't get. But generally, yeah, I did like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
like this style, the acting was really good, like some really wild shit going on. Cinematography, fantastic. There was just some things where I was like, it probably would benefit me if I had watched the first one.
I doubt
just
it.
Didn't, so, oh no, okay, never mind. Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I can see an argument for both, but being like an OG Blade Runner purist, I would say
it sucks.
I would say you could go either way. You could enjoy 2049 on its own merit. But I think if you did watch the first one, it wouldn't take anything away from your experience. You could just be like, oh, yeah, the first one sucked. I prefer the second. But if you did like the first, or even if you didn't, there are some things that tie directly to 2049 that give you a more kind of comprehensive view of the world that's built. Because as much as Denis Villeneuve puts his own stamp and makes 2049 a Denis Villeneuve film, he does pay homage to the first one, to Ridley Scott, rightfully so, I think. But I think he does it justice. So you could go either way. But
there's a couple of films like that. It makes me think of Tron, kind of in some ways, where everything's kind of updated visually, but it probably helps to know the first movie. But also like Fury Road, Mad Max, like the Mad Max movies or whatever. And there's one that comes out and it looks like fantastic, and you're like, oh my god. And if that's the first one you saw, it's kind of hard to go back to the old ones because then it becomes like more spectacle. Yeah. So like that's kind of like the same thing with Mad Max. I saw Fury Road, and then when I tried to go back and watch Mad Max, I was like, I can't really do this.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can't put the genie back in the bottle kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, everyone's different too, so it all depends. But
I think I watched Mad Max.
It is a harder
not too long.
I think Mad Max is one of those ones where I prefer the sequel to the original. But
yeah, I saw
like
the
newest sequel.
No, like Mad Max 2.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like the original 2. So I think the first one was like 79, the second one was 81.
Yeah.
But Denis Villeneuve, he has a certain style and a certain stamp that it's across all of his movies, and there's some people that argue he hasn't made a bad film like in his entire stable of films. I can't comment on that because I haven't seen anything before this film in 2013, I don't think. Okay. I think right before this he made a movie called Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal, who he hired on without an audition because he liked working with him so much. He's like, you're perfect for this role of David Loki. But I've heard Enemy is really good. I think it was released just a year before this in like 2012 or
it was actually parallel. It says they're released in the same year, 2013. Okay. With Enemy coming out. It's listed second, but I don't
well, when they shot it was offset enough to where he knew, okay, I want this guy for this role in Prisoners. And then I think he's French Canadian. I want to say maybe his first and or second film were in French, maybe. Mm-hmm. They might be foreign. And they're both highly regarded, and that's how he got his ticket into Hollywood. And I think after this, he jumped right into. I think he did something else, but he did Sicario,
which is after these two.
Pretty badass.
So it goes, Yeah, Prisoners, Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, which I really enjoy, Blade
Yeah.
Runner 2049, Dune. So yeah, I mean, he's got a solid streak going, impressive streak. After this,
Are we
for
just
sure.
going to brush over how handsome Jake Gyllenhaal is in this movie, or what?
Just
My wife
brush
actually,
over.
she's like, I don't like this haircut on him, but other than
really?
that, he's pretty strapping,
Handsome
human,
man.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why that was kind of the thing, as I was saying before, he's a really good actor, and but in Donnie Darko, he's this kind of weirdo kid.
Yeah.
And then what else? Nightcrawler, he's a really, really creepy kind of person.
Dude, Nightcrawler's good.
And so it's
haven't seen
really
it.
good, but
You would, I think
really,
you would like it.
that one's dope.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd ever cover it for this, but I would recommend it, and I think you would like it. I'll just leave it there. It's a good
Okay.
flick.
Well, I'm trying to think so he was in Zodiac. I guess he's a pretty regular person in Zodiac as well.
Yeah.
But,
I like him in Zodiac. He's pretty charismatic.
Yeah. What else was he in?
Jarhead.
He was in a
but I
movie
like
with
him.
Michael Shannon a few years ago called Nocturnal Animals that I really, really enjoyed.
Okay.
Amy Adams, Michael Shannon.
Let's see that one.
He's been in so much stuff. He was in that cop movie with Michael Pena, End of Watch, which that's not my kind of movie, but I liked it. He was in Jarhead. I feel like every
Jarhead,
performance
yeah.
he gives, he's putting everything on the table, and he's
Mhm.
doing his due diligence, and like he's giving respect to the role that he's playing. Like
Yeah.
not one of these like maybe he is a method actor, but I feel like he puts that kind of attitude towards it, like he's a professional and he's gonna do like the most due diligence into like around the character, and he's gonna give you his best performance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he was in fucking Spider-Man. I forgot about that shit.
Oh yeah,
the one where they go to
Mephisto.
Europe. Yeah. Huh? Oh yeah. So yeah, I like him generally as an actor. I think he's a good actor. But this is the only thing that like just looking at his movies that I've seen him where he's kind of like strapping, like a strapping.
Oh, dude,
guy.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen trailers and stuff. He was in a boxing movie called Southpaw, and he went all fucking in, and he is ripped as shit for that movie.
Oh, time for
Like,
the
he
boner
boxed
alert. Boner alert.
Dude.
Whoa.
Drop. Hit it.
Boner alert.
I think he said for like 8 months or something. Dude, he's fucking jacked in Southpaw, man.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple trailers, kind of like when Tom Hardy got jacked for that MMA movie or whatever he was in, like just peak physical condition. But back to like we spiraled out from Roger Deakins was the cinematographer for Prisoners. He did Blade Runner 2049, but check out this fucking hit parade. So dating back from his earliest shit, Steve, you'll like this. He did a lot of he's been working since like the early 70s, but I guess I'll start at, funny enough for us, he did Thunderheart. He was the director of photography for Thunderheart, which we covered episode 4 in the archives.
Great movie.
Dude, he did a bunch of shit. He did like Sid and Nancy. He did 1984 with John Hurt in 1984. But then post 92, he did The Shank, Shawshank Redemption. He shot that.
God, yeah.
Dead Man Walking, Fargo, the movie, Courage Under Fire, Big Lebowski, The Siege, The Hurricane with Denzel,
Damn.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, The Man Who Wasn't There, Coen Brothers film, Beautiful Mind, The Village, Jarhead, No Country for Old Men,
Fuck.
True
Hot damn,
Grit,
dude. Yeah.
True Grit, Skyfall, James Bond film. That's my favorite one. This, Prisoners. Then did Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, and then to me, like one of the most impressive and like the most like a different style, like a dynamic style of shooting a film was 1917. Have either of you guys seen that one?
Oh yeah. That was really good. Mhm.
The way they shot that, they did this crazy.
That was
they
wild,
did
yeah.
They did a bunch of one shots like across like the battlefield, and they had this crazy rig. It looked like a quad, like fucking just like Frankenstein into like this camera setup to where it would like catch all the undulations and everything in the fucking like battlefield. And like I think there's one famous shot. It's like 10 minutes or something crazy long where it's just one shot. But yeah, I think that's like, you know, he's still working. He's like fucking like 75 or some shit.
Damn,
but
dude.
yeah, he's done a lot of shit. And just to emphasize, I mean, even starting just with the Shawshank Redemption, his pedigree is like insane. And a lot of these shots, there's some of these shots that are like really like haunting. Like at the beginning, like when you look at Terrence Howard's house and they're right behind a tree, and just like the really like nuanced like takes on certain scenes, and like how they'll like linger just for an extra second longer, or give you like a little bit of a different angle, you know. And it like when they're looking through the RV, it looks like you're from the POV of like Paul Dano looking through the RV, and you can see the kids playing and shit. Like he's just like a consummate professional director of photography. And I think that his performance kind of transcends like, you know, just someone who like from a mechanical aspect of someone shooting a fucking camera and capturing film. I feel like he adds like another dynamic of like, you know, like an artistic aspect of like an actor bringing a certain flair. I feel like that kind of translates to this film too. Like it's not just, you know, the nuts and bolts, a guy shooting this scene. He's shooting the scene, but in a nuanced way where it transcends just shooting the film.
Yeah, and especially for a film kind of like this, because you would think it doesn't really ask much of him, especially considering some of the films he's shot. You know, like we're in the small town America, and you know people are just kind of like in their houses or drive around in cars. So you know, there's not anything crazy. But like you're right, there was one shot that kind of sticks out in my mind of a couple where they play with the guy when he's locked up in a Hugh Jackman's little box thing or whatever. You know, the way that they shoot that, the little tube, the eye, but also like showing little pieces of it like inside and kind of getting that small kind of feel with the shadows and stuff like that. I think he did a really good job on stuff like that. Those are the ones that kind of like stick out in my mind.
Steve, what say you? Does that ring true with you as well? Did you pick up on like, because you're right. He could have just coasted on a film like this. Like,
I mean, that resume, keep in mind, I'm the lay person on this panel. So just hearing that guy's resume, I'm not even sure what that job is, but I love all of those movies, or most of those. Or some of my favorites are on that list.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I've watched a lot of movies, but it doesn't mean I know what the fuck the director of photography does, other than like he's the one like at the end of the day responsible for actually shooting, like getting his hands dirty and making this shot look that way is what it is. He's guided by, and he's working in concert with like the director and his vision of what this scene should be. But at the end of the day, he's responsible for like the capture. That's my layperson too understanding of like a director of photography. I know there's a million more things that go into it, but yeah, he's the dude that's like sitting on that fucking chair on like a crane or a dolly and like coordinating and orchestrating like that scene down to like the specific like shot angle and like the fucking resolution of the film and like how much they're gonna zoom in, and that's how you get like those like Dutch angles and shit, and like different like artistic takes on a certain scene, like where you come in kind of like diagonal and then zoom in like fast, and and you can pull back like forced perspective stuff to make things look larger than they actually are like in real time. So yeah, there's an art to it for sure. I know, but I wish I could elucidate it on it a little bit further. But anyway, long way to say is, and this guy's worked with obviously Denis Villeneuve on other films. He's like an in-demand kind of person, and I think they make a really good duo, director and cinematographer. This film actually got nominated for an Oscar in 2014 for cinematography, which it lost out. I can't remember what it lost to, but I think that's an interesting point too, to speak to like maybe why this financially was successful at the box office, but I think it got overshadowed this year. Like Wolf of Wall Street came out. I can't remember. There was another big one, and they released within like 2 or 3 months of each other. I can't remember what the other film was in 2013. There was another big one too, but I think there was just a lot of good shit that came out that year, and this one kind of, I mean, it's well known.
That Evil Dead remake came out.
What's that?
That Evil Dead remake came out, that brutal one, 2013. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that was real big at the box office, I think. Blue Ruin. Oh shit, Blue Ruin. Have you ever seen Blue Ruin?
I have. That's a good one.
That is a good one. Yeah, I got fucking Buzz from Home Alone and that shit. Why is this only showing me? Oh, Man of Steel came out 2013.
Yeah, I don't know if that gave this a run for its money. They probably a lot. Like, did Blue Ruin come out in 2013 as well? Is that why you brought that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gravity, Wolf of Wall Street, Evil Dead, American Hustle.
I think American Hustle was the other one that I noticed got a lot of play, because that was Christian Bale, Amy Adams.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper, yeah, Jennifer Lawrence. Fuck yeah, I remember that. Her came out at that time. The Conjuring fucking came out. Great Gatsby, fucking Frozen, Iron Man 3, Man of Steel, Oblivion. That's with Tom Cruise, Morgan Freeman, World War Z.
I got a funny Tom Cruise story real quick.
Oh shit!
I should have the Mummy scream bump right now. My father-in-law, he was talking like he just watched, I think this was like maybe a year before, a year after, he watched that film with Emily Blunt. What was it called? Like Edge of Tomorrow, I think it was. No, it was like a sci-fi like time travel movie called Edge of Tomorrow. Anyway, he was like,
where he repeat. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of like Groundhog Day, like
Groundhog's Day for action. Yeah,
yeah, it's actually pretty good. And Bill Paxton bringing it back to.
Oh, I haven't
Hips
seen
Don't
it.
Lie, Paxton.
Is Hips Don't Lie in that? Is he in that?
He is.
Was he? What year did he die?
I think this was very close to where he passed away, because this was
I don't remember Hips Don't Lie in there.
He was at the very beginning. He was like the drill sergeant, and he gives Tom Cruise shit every time at the beginning.
That does sound familiar. Yeah.
And then it's funny because like once like Tom Cruise has gone through like his like 50th fucking iteration or whatever, he finally has like the balls to like bow up to Bill Paxton. He says some shit to him, and Bill Paxton's like, "Oh shit!"
All right. Don't tell me too much.
2017.
Okay, so this was in 2014.
Sounds like everything I like in a movie.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not a big Tom Cruise guy, but that one is pretty solid. Like good sci-fi action. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got some interesting twists to it. But anyway, like, yeah, my father-in-law was like jacked on it. He just watched it, and he's like, hey, everyone. He comes in the living room, and he's like, you seen this new Tom Cruise, Edge of Tomorrow? And my mother-in-law just interrupts him like right away, and she goes up and she's like, Ben, we don't like Tom Cruise. And he was just so deflated, like a defeated man. Like he just like Eeyore his way back to the fucking recliner and was like, I was like, hey, that sounds cool, but
cutting his balls off.
It just goes back to Twister when they're like, should we follow him? We do not.
We do not.
Would it not?
Unrealized idea. Unrealized.
Dude, I love fucking Twister, dude.
Dude, Twister's such a banger.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes.
Didn't you see my cows out front?
Dusty, why don't you tell Melissa why you are the way you are? I fucking love Seymour Hoffman in that shit.
Yeah.
All right, Pete. Dude, pour one out for
Pour one out for Hips Don't Lie and Seymour. Damn.
Yeah.
We are big Bill Paxton proponents around here.
Yeah, I was just going through Bill Paxton's like filmography. He did some good shit. He was in Nightcrawler too, apparently.
Was he? Damn.
Yeah, right after Edge of Tomorrow. So 2014, he did
Fuck.
Edge of Tomorrow and Nightcrawler.
I need to revisit. Holy shit.
Yeah, I did too.
I think the last flick when we had Chris on, we briefly mentioned Predator 2. I think that's one that gets buried under a lot of his stuff. And Predator 2 it's a pretty sloppy, messy film. But he goes buck wild in that movie. He takes it like I can't remember his name in Aliens. He takes like that character to another level.
Ramps it up. Holy shit!
In Predator
that's nuts.
2, he's like a hotshot
already
at
another level. Yeah.
Dude. Yeah. Oh yeah. He goes a little bit more balls on and smug, fucking just like panache he's got going. That's Predator 2, Bill Paxton.
Dude, how is Bill Paxton in The Terminator, Aliens, and Predator 2? Like, what the fuck? That dude was...
He must have been cool with Cameron after he kind of carved his own niche, too. But yeah, he is in the OG Terminator. He's one of the 3 punks on top of the Griffith Observatory. And that's when Arnold gets his clothes the first time in the first Terminator.
I need your clothes.
That's one of the movies I want to cover.
And your motorcycle.
Dude, he has a similar... Have you ever seen the OG, the very first Terminator, Steve?
I don't think so.
There's a similar... That's a callback to the first one. He does this the same thing. He's like up on the Griffith Observatory, and there's these like these brown water trash gutter punk
street
fucks.
toughs.
Yeah, and Bill Paxton is one of them, like a super early like throwaway role, and he jacks their clothes. But that's actually, me and my wife were just watching that a couple of years ago. It's like, dude, this is like a horror movie. It's not,
dude. Yeah,
it really is.
It's like a slasher kind of.
It's a slasher with a gun, straight up.
Yeah.
That would be a good one. Maybe we cover Halloween time. I know it's not a deep cut, but I feel like it gets overshadowed on like the horror kind of vibe that it has. It's especially when
it's on my list, for the YouTube like dark horror edges of horror and stuff, because it's pretty much a slasher, like you said, but with the sci-fi bent or whatever. But.
Yeah, a little bit of sci-fi and a gun versus a knife. It's straight. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. I watched like I said, I watched a couple of video essays on Prisoners that we're talking about that are fucking stellar.
Prisoners.
So I'm going to reference that too in the show notes, because I implore people, if you're a fan of Prisoners, to check out people that are smarter than us, talk about it, because there's some really cool symbology shit that I'm not educated enough to talk about.
Symbology. You mean
symbolism? Symbolism.
Is symbology not a word?
I don't think so.
Attacking me right now?
No, okay. It just reminds me of Boondock Saints.
Oh, okay.
Symbology? You mean symbolism. What's the symbolism?
It's just been revoked.
So symbology is a word, the study or use of symbols.
Yeah, but to be fair to me and my autism, they add words to the dictionary that aren't actually real just because they've become popularized, like irregardless or...
What
jug?
Well, I think the difference is symbolism is the use of symbols. So when you're talking about like in a film, it's like, oh, they're used. Symbology is like I'm studying symbols.
Okay, so I'm using it in the incorrect context. Is what I'm doing.
But either way, it's,
I'm the asshole.
I would let it slide. But
I'm gonna pen a harshly worded letter to the Webster people.
What do you mean by that?
Steve is not gonna let it slide.
The symbolism of like mazes and shit, I'll link in the show notes. There's someone that talks about that, and there's you guys
like
remember?
A prison.
Well, it goes deeper than that, but do you remember seeing finger tattoos on Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, I couldn't make out what they were.
Yeah.
You gotta really you gotta like freeze frame it, but when you look at him, it's 4 tattoos on his 4 fingers, and they're of the zodiac, and I can't remember what the fuck they are. They're like Libra, fucking Aries, whatever. But they don't represent this. But when you look at them, they look like MAZE, like maze. Oh. So there's a lot of shit in this film that I've looked like. It's fun to like kind of pick apart. And the genius, I think, of Villeneuve too is like he puts shit in that may be innocuous first watch, or if you're not looking for that kind of thing. But he puts stuff in this film on purpose. There's a reason for everything. There's even a zoom up shot, when like Maria Bello, the mom, Hugh Jackman's wife, when she's like laying in bed, she's like fucking just zonked on like full bars of Xanax or whatever the fuck they have her on.
Yeah.
They zoom up on one of the pill bottles, and it's like for Mazalax or some shit, but they zoom in on it, and like it's
like maze.
Yeah, it says maze. You can clearly see like it zooms in on it. So
that's a very interesting symbol because it really doesn't actually have anything to do with a whole lot. Like from a plot standpoint, there is no actual maze. And so that's why, as I was thinking about this film, to kind of go back, I was thinking, I feel like ultimately it really is about a lot of these like symbols and like underlying meaning more than it is about putting these like this connect the dots of like this. That's why I was like, okay, if I was like, this might be a plot hole or like that's a little loose, because ultimately when I sat with that, I was like, I feel like it's more about a lot of the underlying things. And in that case, there is no maze. There's no kids caught in a maze. There's no maze anybody even has to go through in, like if there was some kind of basement, room or something where you had to go around tight corners. There's nothing like that, really. It's about the maze in your mind, kind of, I guess.
Right. It goes on more like a philosophical bent. Like there's not like a physical maze. Like you get here, you'll find this clue, you'll follow that, and then here's your kids. Like it doesn't do that. But like I think some of the video essay that I watched that was really intriguing and like gave me a lot more insight into this film was talking about like the philosophical, sometimes self-imposed mazes, and going back to like the prisoner idea, which is very on the nose on surface level, but I feel like it goes deeper than that. Like just saying like, the movie's called Prisoners, and these people, he's a prisoner of his guilt. He's a prisoner of, like having to abide by the rules, even though he knows if he bends them, maybe he can get a certain result. But it talks about like the mazes that we maybe are self-imposed into each of our own lives. I mean, it gets kind of fart sniffy and
but
really philosophical, but it's interesting nonetheless. And Villeneuve put a lot of shit in here on purpose that I think is fun to think about and watch. It's got a rewatchability factor.
Yeah, and I would rewatch it for sure. And I get it's figurative, but Alex at one point is like, they're in the maze. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
PC load letter.
Well, I think that goes back to the idea of the kid's mentality, and it ties back to the mentality of the guy we see drawing the mazes. Which actually could be a good connection. And, I think this is good for a rewatch for me because I was confused by that character. But if there is some kind of agreement, if this is spawned, and they do mention a book too, because this guy has this book. Yeah. But if there's some kind of game or mental thing that these abductors are using with these kids, where it makes them more docile or something, to say like, if you actually finish this game, you can escape or something, or you can get out, and it becomes part of their trauma, where there's actually not really walls. There's just walls like in your mind, because this guy's obsessed with it. And if that also connects to the kid who's connected to, because he's free. If he wanted to run away, he could run away. Mm-hmm. He's got a license. He drives around town.
Yeah,
but he's stuck in this like mental maze. Yeah, so it could have this deeper connection with maybe something they do with the kids to kind of keep them in that state. I don't know.
Yeah, because they said that last maze in the book was unsolvable. So it might be a nice thing, like, here, try to figure this out. And also drink this drug juice.
Giving this artificial kind of hope to these kids. Like, yeah, you can solve this when you're gone. It's like it's out of their hands. It's like, it's on you now to free yourself from this prison or whatever. But it's interesting how...
This might be a stupid question, but I'm a little unclear how the one girl escaped.
Well, it seemed like they brought him into that kind of like Florida, that 3-season room kind of thing, and it was just like maybe an opportunity, and she had a moment of where she was like lucid, because it looks like she's keeping them both under wraps with some kind of cocktail that's in these Pepsi fucking bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Some
she
kind
makes
of
Hugh
shit.
Jackman drink it too.
Right.
And I thought too, because there were two connections. One is Alex is, or what is that his name? The kid is gone. The guy
Yes.
who lives with her, he's gone, and she's also moving them back and forth.
And she does specifically say she was lonely, and that's the only reason, because Alex was gone. I think that's what I was trying to back that counterpoint to, was the only reason that they were brought out and were able to have enough of a gap or agency to be able to fucking try to make a break for it was because
That's interesting.
Hugh Jackman.
That's fucking interesting, man.
That's fucking. I knew it would come back to me.
Yeah.
That was the thing. So that I think that was the only.
That would explain why they were left alive, because that was another question I had. But yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, she could have killed him immediately, but she has her own like process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that was back to my point. I fucking completely blacked out on, was the fact that because of him, like the fact that he was not there by Hugh Jackman's direct interference and abducting Alex, that was the only reason, because she started feeling lonely, that she said she brought the kids out. So she must have brought them out of disregarding the pit out underneath the Camaro. There was like some other.
It's a Trans Am
cloister or somewhere that she had them held, and she elevated them from that to like maybe the main floor of the house, and that's how they ultimately got out, because it was playing upon her emotion or sympathies or whatever, because Alex wasn't there. Thank you for proving my point.
There's one thing that I thought was kind of smart, and maybe it's where because it's winter, I guess everything's kind of dead already, because they're celebrating Thanksgiving, so it's at least heading into the winter. But the kid says, "Yeah, we parked the van over there. It doesn't matter anyways, because the grass is always dead. Like we park the camper over on the side of the house because the grass doesn't grow over there." I assume the grass doesn't grow over there because that's where the fucking pit is.
Huh.
Well, the pit is under the Trans Am.
Yeah, but it's on the same side of the house.
Oh, I do remember now. Yeah, talking about something like, oh yeah, it doesn't fucking. It's just mud.
Yeah,
well, I'm
like,
wondering...
he just parks on the side of the house. So either he says or she said where, or no, he says like why were you in front of the house? I know. He's like, where do you usually park the van? He's like, my aunt lets me park it at her house because the grass doesn't grow there anyways, or something.
Oh yeah, like when he's
being interrogated when he's, by
talking
Jake
about
Gyllenhaal. Yeah,
like what are you doing with this RV? Where do you go? And that kind of thing. So yeah, maybe that's the thing that slips, that doesn't get picked up on.
Well, I mean,
and he didn't like to be touched either. That was something that was interesting.
Well, and where did the aunt
put the interview
his fucking truck? Like, she had to put it somewhere that it was never going to be.
It shows her kind of going to the back 40 with it, but
well, yeah, but
which is kind of weird too, because
they
live in like a semi-suburban or full-on suburban area, so it's like, yeah, how much actual property does she have, or did she just go into like some, like, I don't know, ravine far enough behind all these suburban houses?
She's got to be pretty far out there, because she wasn't worried about the sound of a gunshot alerting.
That's
people.
the other thing too. Like, yeah, when she fucking she's like, okay, and blasts him in the knee.
Starts
it's like
blasting. Yeah.
It seems like they're in a pretty suburban area. Like that would, but then once Gyllenhaal hauls ass out of there and he gets shot in the eye, it does seem they're kind of on the back roads at the very beginning.
Because he's got to drive a while. Yeah. I will say in Florida, even, I mean, where I live, my parents live in a big city and stuff like that, but you can easily go from like a suburban cul-de-sac type of neighborhood, and just 5 minutes away, you're like, where the fuck am I? I'm in the boondocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't think it was too crazy for him to just like throw the kid in the car. Like, I'm not going to wait for an ambulance to come out here. It's going to take him fucking forever.
Could be.
Okay. Well, maybe that lends credence to him just fucking, taking the bull by the horns and saying, fuck it, I'm going to the hospital. And this is going to be the fastest way.
But if you're Gyllenhaal, when he leaves the hospital, you think he's going to dead dad apartment and he's not there. Where else do you think he's going? I mean, obviously he's going over to his house, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense why he would go there.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I can't say intelligently. Like,
I guess you could argue that
because
he
they
was just
thought they
gonna try
was
to
on the
flee.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what was kind of smart about it. It's like, oh, we've
Yeah,
already found him.
that's
They
true.
realize we found him. He's on the run, and that's why I kind of like the idea of him just dying in the pit because there's an excuse. It's like, oh, nobody's gonna look for him because he's on the run. And it's just
Well,
like,
yeah,
damn,
and the kid
I
was
guess
like,
that's
you
even
were
more
there.
bleak.
Yeah, and the kid
or
said
maybe
you
the
were
cop,
there.
maybe Jake Gyllenhaal as the cop thought that like, okay, this is his last act, and then he fucking just took off out in the boondocks and put a bullet in his fucking head, like his dad did. Like he's
I mean,
served
Gyllenhaal
his
kind of
fucking
thought
purpose.
he was involved with the kid's disappearance when he was searching the apartment. He's like, we're going to find the kids here? So
Yeah.
when
and then they
the other
pile
gal,
onto that too when they pile on later on when he's looking out, and the camera specifically focuses on the lie that's in his basement too.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Anywho,
well, yeah. I think we've talked at length about this film. I'm glad you guys both liked it as first time watches.
Yeah.
I feel vindicated in recommending it for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that it does have good rewatchability for sure. Your second watch, you might think about some things differently, but at the end of the day, I like this film the most because of like there's so much gray area, the moral ambiguity that's involved, and it asks you like as the viewer in certain spots, like maybe, hey, what would you do in this situation? It's kind of interesting to think about like. You can think about things a certain way, but then what happens when it hits home? I think that's an interesting thing to think about. Like,
kick an old bitch right in the chest.
Yeah, just fucking, this is Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We have, that was a failed bump.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
I don't know if I've explained either. The reason that I associate Kevin Spacey and Kevin Spacey quotes so much is Steve, as you can see him, Soju. One time, I don't know what was it from. Was it a bet or something that went wrong? Because he's always had that beard and mustache. We asked him to shave his face, and he was like, "No, I'm not doing that. Fuck you." So it had to be a bet situation.
This is all revisionist history, but go ahead.
No. I want to know. I honestly can't remember the life of me the circumstances in which you had to shave your entire face.
Well, the Kevin Spacey misappropriation predated the beard shaving.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim has blindness, mental illness, whatever you want to call it. He has always said that I look like Kevin Spacey, which I do not. In my opinion, I do not. But what he's talking about is our friend Dick Dog, who has been on recently.
Mm-hmm.
We had made a bet, a baseball related bet, where he would have to grow out his hair, and he has horrific hair. And if I lost, I would have to shave my beard. And
if he would have lost, Dick Dog, and had to have grown out his hair, he would have looked like that guy recently, like the most Duval person ever, the guy that did the guitar solo for the that wild card playoff. He would have looked like that, like just like straight up to the like a Friar Tuck, but then grown out. That's what it would have looked like.
It would have been horrific.
Oh, no.
And it's a long story because after this happened, he claimed he would never wager his hair ever again. And then he finally did years later, which is a different story. We can get into it with him.
We should cover that one when he comes back.
It's so good. But
Did
yeah,
he lose?
so I had to shave my beard because I lost that initial bet. And then, of course, that fucking week, I got my DMV driver's license renewal.
Yeah.
So I had to go in and take a picture, and I had no beard.
I forgot that.
Yeah.
Damn. So you had to have that fucking scarlet letter on your license as well. That's so cool.
Damn, and that lasts for like 8 years or some shit.
I think it was
It means
5.
you'll be psychically attacked.
Is it 5?
I think it was 5. Yeah, and it was a disaster, and yeah.
I still have a picture of you without any facial hair at all. And that for me, like it was kind of like half joking, like, yeah, you look like Kevin Spacey. And he didn't respond well to it. So I was like, okay, this is something I'm gonna hang on to. And then when you did shave your face, I was like, fuck, you are Kevin Spacey. You look like Kevin Spacey. I would say you maybe like you don't. I would say it's like 58% similarity, but you're vehemently protesting looking like Kevin Spacey has just like galvanized myself. So
What did our friend Jim say? You're just strengthening.
That's you.
You're just strengthening my resolve.
yeah.
Remember that?
Dude, did you just bring up Jimbo Shane?
Yep. I left his full name out for his benefit.
I can edit that out. Should I bring up the really funny story with Andrew Beam just real quick?
You should save it because it's a whole thing.
Okay. All right. Cool. So yeah, that was Prisoners. We spoiled the living piss out of it, to say the least. But
well, that's how it goes. If you haven't seen it,
don't.
What are you expecting? So.
It's to me, it's one of those films like too. It's like you could watch this anytime and get something out of it. I feel, but also if it was spoiled too. There's so many layers to it. Like, I think it's a really enjoyable watch, and I think it's another plus in the Denis Villeneuve column of all of his wins. Yeah, I mean, of the ones that I've seen this, Arrival, Enemy, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune. I like them all. I think they're great.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the sequel to Dune.
I want to check out Enemy now. I've never seen that one.
Yeah, that's also with Jake Gyllenhaal. Really good. Really, really good.
Okay.
Interesting film. And I like to, all of his films are, I guess you could maybe make the jump from Arrival to Dune because they're both sci-fi, but they're both really different too. It's at the end of the day. Each one of his films that I've seen thus far, the ones that I've named, are very different types of stories, yet he's still able to put his own stamp on it without it being like a really generic way of like, oh yeah, this is a Villeneuve film. It's like, oh shit, this is a Villeneuve film. Like, I'm going to think about it that way, more excited because he does different things from each of his films. So yeah, I'd say check out Prisoners for sure. We got a couple housekeeping points too. Before we leave off on the main topic, have you guys got anything else that we maybe glossed over or any little tidbits about Prisoners that you want to talk about before we do?
Nope.
No, we covered it. Good job, boys.
Sweet. Yeah,
that's it. You don't ever need to listen about anything about this film ever again. We got it 100%.
Yeah, it took long enough. Jesus Christ.
We got it.
We do have one listener email that I'd like to share. This is from our friend Nate Dogg, aka Nate 2, aka the Natening from Ghoulish University.
Is that Naterade or is that Thon?
This is Thon.
Okay.
So for people that know, Thon, Nate 2, the Natening, he says, "Yo, finally got a chance to listen to you guys talk about Fallen. Banger of a movie and episode. 2 quick things. 1, Philly cheesesteaks. Pat's and Geno's are the famous ones in Philadelphia, but they're tourist traps and sort of cheeks, which I gotta say, that's one of my new favorite slang words that crosses over into the colloquial corner, is calling something booty or fucking dog shit is cheeks.
Good to know.
I love that. You gotta go to Jim's, John's, Delisandro's, Ishka Bibbles, or even Steve's Prince of Steaks in a pinch.
Oh.
So the next time we're in Philly, we need to ditch the tourist traps that are Pat's and Geno's, which I think we referenced. I don't know what I guess it was the Fallen episode where we referenced that. Those are like the tourist trappy Philly cheesesteak areas of Philadelphia, which our boy Thon looks like he's the he knows a lot about different cities. He seems kind of like a jet setter type of dude. He's seen quite
he's here in Jack's. native.
Yeah, and I know he's a big KC fan, so
Dude, he was with Bob tonight, actually. So that's unfortunate
Damn.
for Bob.
Yeah, that's no good for him. I'm sure he was in his fucking ear all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been around the block a time. He's got some city miles on him, I would say. He would say, which I love too. I haven't heard that. He dropped that on I think an episode of Ghoulish that you and I were on. He dropped city miles, and I was really enamored with that phrase. But comparing like age of certain people that are like from the cuts and versus people who live in the city. Point 2, 6 Degrees from Bill Paxton. John Goodwin was in The Big Lebowski with Sam Elliott, who was in Tombstone with Bill Paxton. So that brought us back to Fallen, because John Goodwin was in Fallen. So that's a pretty close. What is that? 3 degrees of separation. So puts him high in the running. I can't remember from that episode whether you or Heidelberg had a closer connection that you could make to old Hips Don't Lie, but why did you? I can't remember. Was that you who named him Hips Don't Lie?
Yeah, we call him Hips Don't Lie because of if you ever, you can go on YouTube and oh shit, you can go on YouTube. So we're from Florida, and in Orlando they used to have this Twister attraction at Universal Studios. It wasn't really a ride. You go into this room and they do this simulation of a tornado. But before you go into it, Bill Paxton does this presentation, like on a screen, and his hips are fucking cocked, ready to go, dude. So we always call him Hips. Dude, look that shit up. Twister, Universal, Twister, dude, they are freaking cocked. And so ever since then, we all went, when we were young, we were like, damn, Hips Don't Lie Paxton. Good Lord. So yeah, that's from us. That's a throwback, dude.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, look that shit up. Oh my god.
Yeah, I've just through osmosis, I've heard you guys say that phrase, and like when he comes up. So anytime I think Bill Paxton, it's like Shakira is jumping through my mind, and Bill Paxton. Just like hips fucking just going. So
is that Shakira?
I gotta pull that shit out. I might send that to y'all.
Dude, that's so awesome. So and Nate Dogg continues. Also, we got caught up on I got caught up on the Coors Light Chronicles. I gotta grab a beer with Dick Dog and you guys sometime. Nate Dogg, Dick Dog, G Funk, and Steve. What's our boy band name? Sincerely, Nate, a.k.a. Nate 2, a.k.a. Thon, a.k.a. Nate Dogg, a.k.a. Nasty Nate, who was the astrologer of Ghoulish Uni.
Wow.
That guy's just a good time.
Yeah, that does sound fun.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
What say you, D? I know you're deep in thought. I was trying to think about this earlier. A boy band of you, Dick, and I. And Nate Dogg.
Well, Dick's a senior citizen who's been kicked out of a local bar multiple times, which we can talk about on his episode.
Dude, there's so many choice cuts for we have to do an episode 4 with him of just like good shit.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
I've done 3 episodes now, right? I was listening to that the other day. On his life specifically.
It's crazy too, because as much audio as we recorded with him, it's just like that. It's just like the very tip of a gargantuan fucking iceberg.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
But beyond that point, yeah, I think we should have him back soon for 4, just to just hit all the deep. The choice cuts of good shit, and getting away from all the, the heartache and everything that we talked about.
Yeah, we've made him look good for long enough. It's time to take him down a peg or two.
Take him down a peg. Yeah. In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Bring him down an octave.
Humanize him.
The light bulb and road P are kind of front of mind for me, for sure.
Oh, you mean those 2 things we were told to not... That we were not
specifically not talking
not allowed to talk about.
Talking about those things.
It's okay. I'm going to bring up other things that I was explicitly told not to talk about, but don't tell them that.
Me sobering up. Ow.
All right. Well, I think it's about dinner time over here, but
It's about dinner time. You know what that means, folks. I wish I were quicker on the draw for wit, but I can't. I can't think of a good boy band name of all of us. The thing that kept like blaring in my mind was a former coworker's old band that was called Casual Ruckus, but it was spelled with a K. I feel like that's pretty fitting, but yeah, I'll have to do some thinking. Or 98,000 degrees, maybe would be fitting.
yeah.
Dude, what is y'all often refer to on what days? Wasn't Joe Dirt in a band?
Was he?
Y'all often refer to like the Joe Dirt. I have to look. God damn it! I should have looked it up before I mentioned it.
I know I referred to kind of like our buddy Dick Dog's story as a mashup between.
That's what made me think of it. Yeah,
Joe Dirt and Don Quixote.
Jew kids on the block.
What was that one? Men with hats. You can dance if you want to.
I thought it was
bearded
men without
men
hats.
with hats. Bearded men or men without. I don't know. Bearded men without hats. Fats Domino. Who did he die with?
I think you're thinking of Big Bopper.
Was that Richie Valens?
Who died with Richie Valens?
I'm thinking of Chubby Checker.
Nope. You're thinking
Big
of
Bopper.
Big Bopper,
Okay,
who died with Buddy Holly and somebody else who sucks. Richie Valens.
Oh, that's right. What's that Chantilly Lace? What's that song that used to play that was a fucking banger? Who is that by? Chantilly Lace had a pretty face.
I guess that's going to do it for
Fuck
this
is
episode.
that song? You know it. I know you know it.
Nat King Cole, or I don't know. Thanks, Justin,
No,
for coming
it was
on.
one of those.
We're gonna have to tuck Gwen. We're gonna have to tuck Jim
I was
into
still
bed.
trying to look up that fucking band.
I think Chantilly. It might be
Please do.
Nat King Cole.
No, it was not. It was
Al Green.
It was one of the three. It was either Chubby Checker, Fats Domino, or
Sam Cole.
I don't know
Chubby
who the third
Checker.
is now.
Al Green. If only you had
Okay.
a machine in front of you.
Yeah, I'm bad at having
Big Bopper.
30
Yep.
windows up. Big Bopper. There you go.
Yep. He done died in an airplane.
Damn.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, that'll do it for this episode. If you guys want to reach out to us, ask us any questions you have about prisoners, any neat insights, you can reach us at waxingtheporpoise.com. Or either one of our socials is Instagram is Waxing the Porpoise and Twitter is at Waxing the Porp. Thank you to Nate Dog the Second for reaching out to us. Thank you also, Justin, for weathering the storm and bearing with us for this episode. Can you tell us where you guys can find Straight Chilling?
Yeah, sure. So I am one of the hosts, one of the three hosts of Straight Chilling Podcast. You can find us anywhere you listen to regular podcasts. We have a website, straightchillingpodcast.com. We're on Instagram and Twitter at Straight Chilling Podcast. Most of the time, I think Twitter's, I never get on Twitter. Fuck. I don't know what our Twitter handle is.
I think it's STR8 _
chilling. Yeah. Bob's gonna roast me for that one. But yeah, we're on YouTube. We have some extra content on there that's separated like from the podcast. We do like horror video game reviews. I've been doing like some thriller movie reviews. We got like some tier lists and rankings and stuff on there as well. So yeah, check us out for all your spooky needs. Straight Chilling Podcast.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, check them out. Do yourself a favor. I'm sure you guys already know about them if you're checking out our cast. But I totally glossed over a colloquial corner. Do either of you, did you come prepared for a new or hated colloquialism? I didn't ask for this in advance, so if you don't, that's fine too.
I do have one, but I'm going to save it for next time.
Okay.
I did not come prepared.
No, that's cool. I didn't ask you to, so that's fine. I do have one that I've been using recently that I like a lot, and it's a dual purpose. So it's gas. It's something that like gasoline, something that's super dope, or if you're calling bullshit on someone, like they're just fucking blowing smoke, and you just call, nah, that's gas, man. Like propane, like it stinks.
Oh yeah. Don't
Have you ever
tell
heard
him
that?
kill that shit.
Like, oh no way, man, that's fucking gas.
No, I'm not
Taste
on
the meat, not the
TikTok,
heat,
so I'm also not 13. I'm not.
Have you sprayed any small children with your hose in your front yard recently?
Not yet, because you know why? The first one got the message.
Dude, that's one of my favorites. You just helping out, having the auspices of helping out small children, and then you just fucking spray one.
Just sneakily. Yeah, trying to spray their ball out of my tree, and then just take a quick moment to just blast a kid who's standing right there like, fuck you. Oh yeah, we're just trying to get your ball. Oh. Yeah. That's called taking the power back.
Go to bed, you sons of bitches.
Alrighty. Well, that'll do it for us here on Waxing the Porpoise. Thanks again, Justin, very much for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. So
yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Did we scare you away from ever coming back? Or?
Nah, yeah, have me back anytime for sure.
Nice. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, we'll do it for sure. I'm ill prepared, so I don't know what the fuck we're talking. I think it's either we're going to talk about. Oh no, that's right. We're going to be talking about the newest developments in the Zodiac case, including what is that? The 340? Is it called the 340 cipher?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's been some additional developments on top of that in the past couple of years that we'll be talking about. Also, Chris, again, from Channel 83, will be joining us for that. So
Jake Gyllenhaal will be joining us next week to discuss his movie, The Zodiac.
Dude, we've talked about that before. Didn't you have a friend you talked about that got freaked out by that fucking basement scene in Zodiac with Jake Gyllenhaal? Dude,
all right,
I remember the first time watching that.
It's just real quick. Fuck. It's one of my favorite stories that's ever happened.
Yeah.
I used to live in a house where we had 5 roommates in a 5-bedroom house. One of my other roommates opened the kitchen door to let a cat outside, and my roommates, whose door was right next to it, had been watching the Zodiac that night and was scared. So he left his door open. For some reason, he thought that would make him feel better. So when the roommate let the cat out and closed the door, this other roommate assumed there was an intruder in the house, jumped up, ran through the house, banging on every door, every wall, every window, all throughout the house, waking up every roommate with the initial roommate who had let the cat out. He knew what was going on, so he followed him like, it's okay, everything's fine, it's just me. So he starts banging on every door, every wall, every window, and he gets to the last roommate in the master bedroom, and he's banging on the door with 2 hands, and then he collapses at the base of the master bedroom door. So me and all of the other roommates are walking out of the room, our rooms, like, what the fuck is going on? And he sort of comes to and realizes what's going on, and this is my favorite part of the whole story. He goes, this is not the first time this has happened. So we just all went back to bed.
God damn. Dude is skittish as fuck.
Yeah.
Dude, that part is scary, but that's another level to just be hauling balls down hallways.
Yeah.
Just banging. Like,
well, and he was also yelling, like, guys! Wake up!
That's
oh,
so
damn. Just worked himself into a tizzy, passed out.
Yeah.
Right on the floor.
Yeah, because at first he claimed he was asleep. And then later he's like,
what?
Yeah, I just got scared.
Yeah.
Dude, you don't admit that
up.
kind of thing, man.
Nah, I was sleeping, dog. Just always sleeping.
That part is fucking freaky, though. If you've ever seen Zodiac, when he goes down, and it's funny, like, side tangent too. That guy that's like describing, like, that does the paintings and shit, and like he's talking about there's not many basements in California, and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, but I have one. Like that whole scene. That guy, I think his name's Charles Fleischer or Charles Fleischman. He was in Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, but he was the voice of Roger Rabbit, which is really fucking weird.
That's
like
weird.
he's like a voice guy, and he's been in a couple other things, but Yeah, he plays a fucking creep in that scene when Jake Gyllenhaal comes down, and he's like, "Oh fuck, dude." That part every time, but the first time, yeah, that one gets you. Oh shit! I wanted to mention as well. Both Steve and I are scheduled to record with A Cut Above for Identity from 2003. We're recording that on Monday, so they usually release same day. So by the time we won't release this until Thursday, the 26th, and A Cut Above, they probably release Monday, Tuesday. So that will have already been out as of the 23rd or the 24th of January, give or take. So yeah, check out that'll be their most recent episode covering Identity with John Cusack and Ray Liotta, Amanda Peet. I haven't seen that one in a really long time. They're always a great time, and so that should be a really fun discussion too. So yeah, check them out as well. A Cut Above Horror Review. Cool. So yeah, thanks again, Soju, for coming on. Appreciate you. Check us out next week. We'll be talking about some Zodiac shit, getting into some true crime kind of stuff. And I think, yeah, Chris will be joining us from Channel 83. So thanks again, and we'll see you when we see you, and we'll see you later.
Boner alert.
Boner alert.
I think they took out like completely a couple ingredients, and then they had to like scale back like the taurine and like guarana, like shit they put in energy drinks.
Yeah.
Because like
Dude, fun fact, my buddy Randy from the podcast, Randy, almost did the Four Loco challenge, like four Locos.
That's what the challenge is, just drink 4?
Yeah, 4. Dude, he got like 3.5 and like was,
oh my God,
in a lot of pain. Oh shit, dude.
Yeah, that sounds like the kind of shit that's gonna make you Ralph, and it's gonna be
that's
hardcore.
You're blacking out after the second one, I think.
Yeah,
at least I would.
Dude, later that night he was like puking. We were like young too, but I remember I was like, dude, are you all right? And he like looked up at me like from the puke, and like eyes were black, just like gone. Dude was gone. I was like, I'm gonna let you hang, bro.
Gwenza, you might like this expression, that look that he's talking about when you see finishes black. Have you ever heard that referred to as shark eyes?
Oh, no,
but I love
makes
that.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like this person no longer is there. They've just been taken over. Have you ever heard of it's like a super bro challenge that they do where you go to the Yard House and like I've never been there, but I guess they have like a 12, a 24 ounce, and then a yard is 36. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
and the challenge is to go there and get a fucking first down. So you do 10 yards.
Oh God.
Get a fucking first down on a Monday
First
night.
down. Yeah. Dude. Are yard houses like a national thing? I thought they were like a regional.
I don't know.
Like the establishment.
I've never even been to one. I'm just somewhat familiar.
There's one
I think it's kind of like an Applebee's, like shitty.
Oh, is it?
Chain.
Okay.
I've been there before. I'd say it's a step up from that, but yeah, they got one in Roseville there.
Oh, do they? Damn.
Yeah, over by the what's that mall called?
Oh.
The one with the rose on it, but it's called something else.
Yeah, you mean the Galleria?
Yeah, Galleria.
Damn, I didn't even know they had
The
that over
Galleria. Pinky's out.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Over what is that? What's the other
Galleria.
one that's dope over there? Like the Palladio.
They have the fountains at the Galleria.
Yeah.
Damn.
It always makes me
That's
think
the
of
rich
that.
side of the Galleria.
It always makes me think of that South Park where they're like, our new development is south of downtown South Park. It's Sodo Soba. And then there's like the villas at the View at Sodo Sopa. It just gets longer and longer. Like, Jesus.
That's awesome.